Hello, lords and ladies of the internet. Welcome back to the Council of Candor. And today we got a fun little show for you. We're going to be talking about subverting expectations and twists. So we're going to start out a little bit different. I'm sure you know pretty much all the guests here. They've been here several times, and my co-hosts are well known. I'm going to let them just do a quick spiel to introduce themselves. Then I got to go into a couple things that are just really grinding my gears lately. So first up, we have Mr. Dez. How you doing today, Dez?
I'm doing all right. It's, I've been on here a few times. Don't feel like I got an explanation really, especially since I don't have a channel, so I can't even be like, and this is what I do on my channel. So
What's
Huh?
with the does?
He's a friend of mine. He's a moderator. And he loves history. If you want to learn about history, he's your guy and girl sometimes.
Mm.
And next up, we got
He's my
Nebula.
girl all the
Nebula,
time.
you've already got love and chat coming towards you, my friend.
Yes.
So I love that Nebula.
Well, hello.
Me and him will be streaming later tonight, and he does some fantastic
Yes.
streams. Why don't you let this?
Yes.
Ian,
I've been playing a lot of Persona 5 Strikers, and with Kid, we do a weekly stream of Baldur's Gate.
I make sure to show up in the chats of his Persona Strikers and absolutely ruin the tension. Don't worry.
Yes, it's
Dave?
great. It's really
Dave?
funny. Except when you don't, like when it's actually serious, like last time. With that guy insulting that guy's deceased mother's final painting.
That was
Fuck
great,
that
though.
guy.
Base?
Oh yeah.
Base?
Yeah, no, oh
Yeah.
boy, I want to beat that man.
Oh yes.
I'm so glad I got to.
Evening Blowfish.
Persona.
Oh yes, Persona. And then next up is our animal expert, Mr. Pops. And hi, James. I see you in chat.
shout out James. Yeah, I'm doing fairly well today. I actually had to run up, even though I'm not on the schedule to work. I ran back up to HQ for a little seminar presentation from a state biologist who I think works with fish and game, and it was a presentation regarding bats. So I learned a lot about them. Fun fact about them that I learned when I first started working with animals a couple of years ago was that bats are actually the number one rabies vector in the state. So if you've got one in your house, you probably should call animal control and have it sent into the health department for testing. So keep an eye out for that. Do not let them get on you. Their teeth are so tiny that sometimes you can't tell that they've bitten you, and then next thing you know, you've got rabies and you die. So I'm doing pretty well. I learned learned a good bit about them. That's a little fun fact for you. But I think this is a topic that I definitely have a few strong opinions on a few pieces of media that either have done this the right way, the wrong way, the okay way, the iffy way, who knows. So we're going to get into all that. It's going to be a lot of fun today.
Oh, yes. And then it's been a while since he's been on, but he's a valued member of the team, Mr. Tio Packley. Would you like to tell us a little bit about what got you excited today, Mr. Tio?
Oh, yes. Hello. There's been a great deal of media lately that have done all sorts of subversions, and I've ended up with strong opinions, meh opinions, and just sad, sad defeated opinions. And so it was just a
What do you
topic
mean?
that I was hoping.
I think it's
What do you mean?
trending.
TLJ is amazing. What do you mean? It's come on.
No,
We only
say that.
we only talk about how much we love TLJ here.
The movie
Yeah.
that shall not be named.
It's not just that, to be fair. It's like most of the movies Disney's have made, but it's fine. It's fine.
Look, I
It's
just don't
fine, I
understand why you
swear.
hate women and little girls. Okay, why do you hate?
Today.
Hey, I'm pretty good. Nothing really to complain about, or at least nothing big enough to raise a fuss about. So yeah, it's pretty neat. You should check out my first trilogy and the second one. I think there's a pretty good subversion right there at the end.
There you go. More
yeah.
on the way.
More on the way. Yeah, I'm consistently writing. I just finished the first third of a novel that has been just beating my fucking dick. Like it has been a slog to write through the first third of this novel. But I think the rest of it will be a little bit quicker to write. Maybe. Hopefully. Maybe. We'll see.
All right.
And last but not least, right on time, is Mr. Shadow. How you doing today, Shadow?
Hey there, I'm doing fantastic. I'm happy to be here on time as always.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to fix your volume. So sorry about the getting flashbang there, chat. It's my Discord loves to raise everybody's volume when I plug my headphones in. It just wants
You
to
know,
kill
that's
you
what,
all, I
Oh
promise.
boy.
that's what they
Great.
called me in college.
Hmm?
All right. So before we get into the full topic today, I figured, chat, I want to talk to you guys a little bit. I want to give a little bit of some stuff
State
that's
of the
going on
Union.
lately. So first of all, I cannot believe how horribly Star Wars is doing right now. The
Oh,
Acolyte
it's awful.
is
What do you mean it's
so
amazing?
awful. Everything about it is just a train wreck. I thought that they were
Yeah.
terrible beforehand when they were doing Star Wars content, but dear God, is the Acolyte something else? Just watching
Oh, you
them
don't like the
struggle.
power of getting?
No, like
It's
you've only
it's
seen
really
those clips. You've just seen that little little jokes online. They struggle with
Yeah.
basic storytelling conceits. I haven't been able to sit down and like do a full deep dive on it, but I've watched bits of it with my family here and a couple friends who wanted to watch it, and it's just upset me deeply. If this channel was more into like ripping down movies and stuff like that, I would really make an entire thing focused on it because it is bad, and I don't understand how people can still defend this. If you want to have media that like promotes let's just say inclusivity with with lesbians and black people and giving them the spotlight, I would be offended, and I think you actually hate them if this is what you pointed to and showed them. If you looked at lesbians and this is the show for you guys, I mean, I'd be upset if I was a lesbian. It's so poorly written. It's so poorly paced. Characters switch motivations on the fly. So there'll be a character, episode 1. I don't like the Jedi. I'm scared of the Jedi, and I think that I should kill the Jedi because I hate them. All right, that's her motivation. Episode 4 comes around. You know what? I think I need to go to the Jedi and turn myself into them. I know I killed 3 of them, but I think they're gonna, understand that I just really am sorry about the whole thing. I'm gonna kill all of my friends and allies and go join the Jedi. And you might say, "Oh, well, there's character development, right?" No, no, no. Up until 30 minutes before this character made this choice, so the last episode, full hardcore, get gang tattoos, the swastika against the Jedi, all that crap is this character. Off screen decides, you know what, I actually like the Jedi. Another character
This is,
decides, oh, I need to kill this person who's killing the Jedi. The entire reason I'm here is I need to kill them. The last episode, the entire reason they were was to prevent the Jedi from killing them. So they went from I want to save them to I want to kill them to now episode 4 is, oh, I don't know why I'm here anymore. I should just go home. You guys don't need me. What the? Your whole reason for being here is to help your
Hang on.
sister. Oh!
King,
Hang on.
check council
This-
text.
these-
I just posted a meme.
Oh my God, yeah, it's true.
It's
Uh,
so great.
I want to say about the show something that really grinds my gears, and I don't know why this specifically is. They are intent on saying that May had to kill a Jedi without a weapon and that she's been failing at that. She convinced the second Jedi to kill himself by drinking poison. If that's not killing him without a weapon, I don't know what is. You're killing him with your words.
The weapon is
Poison on a weapon?
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Poison on a
She
weapon?
got a Jedi to kill himself?
So she got
Yeah,
Torben from Game of
make him
Thrones,
feel
who's
so
got a
bad.
horrible haircut in this show. He's all
I
sad
don't
because
think we
he
should-
did something bad that we don't know yet that's going to be revealed, of course. And she tries to beat the hell
Uh-huh.
out of him, but he's got like a force field around him that he's had for a decade, so nobody can get to him. No idea how
Right.
he eats and shits, by the way. Let's just sidetrack that. Let's just assume it happens because the force. So he's in this bubble. Nobody goes and talks to him. She sneaks in, tries to beat his ass. Nothing happens. She angrily leaves. She goes and gets poison from the local poison vendor who assassinated the only doctor in town, and nobody knows at all what happened. The only doctor on this whole fucking planet's
Ah.
dead. And they're like, oh yeah,
Ah,
I
yes,
killed him, took over.
Yes, the local poison vendor.
Yeah, the poison vendor.
I'm sorry.
Awesome.
Can we
This
go
is
back
peak.
for a moment? Can we go back for a
Ken,
moment?
why are we covering this? This is literally peak. Okay, I don't know.
I have, I have a question. Is there only one like village on this planet?
Yeah, it's one of those Star Wars planets. The ones that everybody
Okay.
said Lucas had when he actually didn't have them. Lucas had a problem with having one biome on a planet, which is still kind of problematic, but usually you could excuse it as, oh, this is the only spot we see, or a lot of the biomes were like specific to that planet. It was noted as that planet was that thing. This is literally just one shitty village. By the way, every Disney show and movie has the same exact crappy village. Everybody looks like they're kind of on Tatooine, but kind of not on Tatooine, and they all dress the same, they act the same. I hate it so much. It's the death of all creativity. Never mind the prequels. Oh, just look at the prequels. When you went to a different planet, you were like, holy crap, this is a different planet. You could not see the dudes who were digging lava on Mustafar going to Kashyyyk because they had completely different technology, dress codes, races, cultures, all that. Every single
Listen,
Disney Star Wars thing looks the same.
It's
Even-
I
okay.
will defend something. I will defend Andor and say I feel like Andor had varying biomes.
I
But
would
that's
say-
the
No.
only
Yes,
exception.
Andor,
No, don't get me
converted-
wrong. I'm just saying I want to protect Andor because Andor doesn't deserve this. Everything
his own
else
bubble. We know it's in
absolutely
his own
deserves
bubble.
it.
You got to give you Andor.
I don't.
They
I
subverted
look.
my
I
expectations
want the
by not being
audience to
cliche.
know that Andor is in its separate little bubble and is not in this.
By the way,
in the
I do
same
want to
Dude,
say I got the meme that Nebula wanted to share on screen. There you all go.
Yeah.
It's great.
Oh, hang
It's a
on.
very good meme. But no, it
Also-
gets better. So she then says, okay, I need to get
James,
this
wait,
Jedi
I
Master.
just want to point something real quick. James, the EU is not canon. Thank God they are ignoring it. Okay, I don't want another butchered version of the EU for the 50th time where they take something that I like and was written well and just butcher it again, James. I do
you're
not want that.
Oh, you mean
Yeah,
like the coping villain in Ahsoka?
Don't talk about Thrawn. I haven't seen Ahsoka. I'm never gonna see Ahsoka. I've heard the memes with Ahsoka. I've seen the memes with Ahsoka. I don't want to know what Thrawn does in that show. Okay,
All right, so
I
I
don't.
want to get back to
I'm
the
gonna
poison
live a
thing.
happy
I'm
life
sorry.
without that knowledge.
I want to talk about the Acolyte because this is them unfettered. This is them with the ability to tell whatever they want. They have their own characters. There's nothing restricting them. So this character who hates himself, for some reason hasn't killed himself yet, hasn't decided to end himself, just meditates. The chick he thought he killed shows up, tries to beat his ass, leaves. He tells nobody she was here. She comes back that night with some poison and says, all right, boy, I'm low tier guard, KYS. And he looks at her, bet, takes a drink of the poison while staring her in the eyes, and then falls over dead. What?
She just like tricks him. She just
No.
tricks
Show
him.
is
No, she said,
Not
hey,
even
I know
close.
you're
Says
sad that you killed
can
my
either-
friends and family, but if you want redemption, you should kill yourself. And he's like, what a fantastic idea. I'm going to kill myself right now. You know, the thing that I could have done with the convening decade? Not going to ask a single question of how the person that you're suicidal because you killed is in front of you telling you to kill yourself. You're not going to have a question for that? You're not going to, hang on a second. The reason I'm sad is I
The
thought I
Force
killed
works in mysterious ways, duh.
Wait, specifically what she says, if I think I can recall it pretty well, is you can either confess your crimes to the Jedi Council or you can receive my forgiveness. The forgiveness is the vial of poison. He drinks the poison.
But
It's
why would that be effective?
No.
Why wouldn't he just
That
be
was
like,
too
"I
heavy.
tell him, dummy, go to the Jedi Council, see what happens."
because he's been feeling bad for the past 16 years. Because I think it's been 16 years. He spent the last decade in this bubble. Somehow, in those 6 years, he went from an apprentice to a master, and none of the Jedi were able to feel that he had all this regret and was allowed to become a master, which seems weird.
How did he become a master? He sat in a bubble.
No, there were
His
6
master
years
did sat
from
in the bubble. Which, by the way,
Yeah,
get
there were
fucked,
6
Anakin.
years from
This random
apprentice
prick
to
became a
master.
Jedi Master in 6 years. You spent 2 decades and you're nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True. What is
Well,
your
to be
so-
fair, he was
Don't forget, kid, this
Anakin.
random
Was he like a
prick who
knight
everyone-
before a master, or because like
No, he
usually
was.
you're a
He
knight.
never got to master. They just cucked him at night.
Oh, they
There's-
just went straight from. Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah,
so
the-
I mean,
Really?
Anakin was a
Like,
knight
he
for
fought-
like.
hang on.
He fought
so, hang
Sith
on a minute.
multiple times and he never got past night. Why?
Yeah.
Good question.
Exactly. So this character, his name is Jedi Master Torben because that's who he played in Game of Thrones. We see him 16 years ago. He's a Padawan who the witches try to strangle and kill. So they stopped doing that. All the witches get killed. Then 6 years after that, he became a master. Then after he became a master, he was so in regret that he froze himself for a decade. I have no idea what takes 6 years of building regret for you to decide to do that with. That is just one instance of the
Yeah,
show.
that's stupid.
It is incredibly
But
hardly
also,
written,
kid,
and it's just so frustrating.
That's a lot. But also, kid, that's a lot of regret. How did none of the other Jedi Masters feel this and recognize he didn't deserve to become a master because he had such strong emotion? That
Well, you see, it's because the Jedi Masters forgot to check his emotions.
oh
at
yes,
first.
Actually,
correct, you're
that's
right.
canon to the show. They have the ability to mind read
Huh?
deeply. They don't mind read this one guy, and he turns out to be the big bad.
Because they
Yeah.
forgot.
They-
Of course. It's
Bruh.
In the
We
words
have
of
to-
those one guys who wrote Game of Thrones, we just kind of forgot. Okay.
Listen, his character sheet had their character sheet had
He
so
kind of
many
forgot.
abilities. They couldn't remember what ability did what. They decided it probably wasn't important to double check. That's all.
Dude, have you
No.
seen the Jedi like list of abilities? Like that thing's probably on like G or something like that. Like it's gonna be
just so
annoying to find that.
it's so
whole list.
frustrating.
Mhm.
I keep trying to get away from Star Wars. I love Star Wars so much, but I know it's a dead franchise now. Disney's ruined it, and I can't do anything about it. But they keep writing it in new and creative ways to be utterly stupid. I don't understand. You already
But
fucked
that's-
everything up. How do you keep
That's
finding
the real
new and
subversion
creative
of
ways to fuck it up?
expectations. They keep making it worse.
Yeah, that is the subversion. Yeah.
We
All I
we
gotta
never
say,
expect
God
it to
bless,
be
we
worse.
aren't
It
covering
always
for this
is.
show, so I don't have to watch
How?
it.
It's a combination
All I gotta
of
say
things.
is, yeah.
The when Star
I-
Wars started out, it was a little bit more targeted towards the quote unquote, nerd sci-fi, those type of guys, that audience, that crowd. Ever since
Mhm.
Disney got a
Sorry,
hold of
are
it,
you
it's
seeing?
been like,
Wait,
oh,
wait.
dude,
Pops, are you
Please.
saying it's targeted towards men? The Force is female. I'll have you know.
saying
I
ever
I
since
do want
Disney
to
got the
say
claws on
I-
it, they started targeting more general audiences and like a different audience, and it totally ruined it for the initial audience, and now they hate it. And now the audience that they're actually targeting couldn't care less about it to begin with. And beyond
Mhm.
that, it's become a meme at this point. But yeah, you keep hiring these like wealthy Hollywood type of people to try and write these characters who apparently are suffering, oppressed, and everything, like things that they don't understand, they don't identify with, and that's why you get these products of like
Yeah.
the things that almost become like offensive to those marginalized communities because it's coming from people that have no idea what they're actually going through.
Yeah, similar stuff is
It's
happening
just so
to
badly written. It's so badly written it frustrates me because when I'm trying to understand like what's going on here, it's just it blows my mind. I could not write this worse if I tried. They are going against
Apparent-
storytelling things so specifically. This feels like you have to be trying. This is like if you asked Stephen King or like any other of the master authors out there who can make a good book, gave him 20 years and said, make the worst thing you possibly could every single time. I don't understand it. You think they've accidentally stumbled into mediocrity. Just, holy crap.
You know what that reminds me of? Random
honestly,
example. Sorry.
a similar sort of thing is happening possibly with Warhammer, because it was going to
Oh,
get a
yeah.
TV show, and Henry Cavill was going to be on it. And
Yeah.
allegedly, this is not confirmed yet. They're trying to force whatchamacallit? They're trying to
Space
force
Marines?
female space marines.
Female custodies,
course.
and I covered that on a video probably about a month ago.
No, they're
And they're doing it
in
worse.
specifically the show. They apparently Netflix was trying to enforce female
Amazon.
space marines. Yeah, Amazon.
Is that?
And
But is
Cavill
that- is that
basically saying,
confirmed?
I'm out.
It's all a
Is
rumor.
any
It's
of
not
that
I heard
confirmed,
fully
though?
confirmed. It's
No,
that's-
mostly
I mean, they-
rumors.
they
I
went
did
back
mention that it was
Yep.
rumors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard
From my
these rumors
understanding,
before,
those
but
were the original rumors, but then it sounded
Yeah.
like that they would try to replace that with female custodies. Not Warhammer, the Warhammer company, tried to push back and say we can't do that, but we can do female custodies. That's my understanding of the order of events.
No, it's not.
Doomcock has taught me
Uh,
to never trust any rumors ever.
Yeah. The female custodians thing is a
Yeah,
thing
that almost
was
feels
written
like
into
the
a
opposite.
Doomcock.
book,
Kathleen Kennedy got fired
stupid
6
thing.
times already.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
She's double, triple filed this time, I swear. Speaking of people in the
Ultra
fandom
fire.
menace and stuff, and those evil alt-right chuds, I just want to say something right now. So I don't know how many of you know what the channel Looper is. It's basically one step above AI-created content. Vacuous, useless crap. And yeah, I'm calling you out. I have no idea
it's
why
like movies.
you, people who run Looper, I don't know, Mr. Looper and Mrs. Looper, felt the reason to decide to go after Nerdrotic and Critical Drinker because they don't like this garbage Acolyte show. This show sucks. And both of them love Arcane. It's clearly not a problem with lesbians. Both of them love House of the Dragon. It's clearly not a problem with black people and minorities. They have no problems with fantasy stories like this. It is absolutely the quality writing. For you to spend an entire segment of your show decided to say, oh, it's alt-right chuds like Drinker and Nerdrotic. Are you stupid? You're grasping at the straws of inadequacy, looking at people who are getting hundreds of millions of views every time they upload videos. All they're doing is speaking truth to what all the people say. We know it sucks. Stop lying to me and telling me it's good for your damn press kits. Have a little bit of integrity, take the cock out of your mouth, and say, I don't like it at the very least. You don't have to be as harsh as they are, but you can at least, speak the truth and understand why people are so upset and fed up with it. There's a reason that even though people are, put against them in the algorithm, they're still growing because they're not wrong. The things they're saying is normal. YouTube is people supposed to be authentic. Stop pretending at and playing at corporate politics, and you will understand why all your channels are stagnating. God, pisses me off to know.
Disnoids don't have anything authentic. There is no inside. There is nothing behind the mask of a Disnoid. It's
It almost reminds me of that time Organized Chaos went through somebody's video and it was sad that they didn't find them talking about the lesbian mothers badly. It.
Dude, you know what? Though?
You don't have to play politics. You can just talk about how badly something is written. Not everything is a giant political screen. Like, there's plenty of political crap out there. Don't get me wrong. Anytime Ben Shapiro reviews anything, it's hysterical because he's so immersed in his own little worldview, he just sees nothing of value. The fact that he thought The Last Jedi, I think, was the second or third best Star Wars film should tell you just how out of touch he is with reality. It's because he likes flashy visuals and he's got no sense of storytelling. But just...
No, yeah. Like, the best example with that is, like, his whole tier list, because it's like... Ben Shapiro's was like laughably bad, where he's just like, kids bad, so Phantom Menace is near the bottom. Flashy lights and colors. That's what Star Wars is. Who cares about the storytelling? It's all stupid.
Episode
it's not this
5
high
as the worst,
class.
like,
oh no!
I don't think he was that bad.
We should cover the.
I think he did rank it high. He had some bad things on that list.
He had the worst takes
I remember he put. I remember episode 9 was absurdly high. Like episode 9 was absurdly high. 5. 7 was way too high.
Mm-hmm.
The prequels were, way too low. 8
It's
might have been
almost
fine.
like-
I don't remember if 8 was on like a good place.
It's almost like political critique and politics and like good shows or good content in general don't necessarily go together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
100%.
crazy.
Like
also
on a related note with the like Looper going after Critical Drinker, it seems like I don't know why, but for whatever reason, this is the media that like Disney seems like from what I've heard wants to go after like Critical Drinker and Nerdrotic. I really don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
I'll
it's
tell you
one of
the
the
facts.
worst
I do
examples
feel
to
like
go.
the way that the way that we were talking about how Ben Shapiro can't do anything but look at things through a certain political worldview. I do feel like a lot of people have the same issue, but on the opposite end of the spectrum. So Drinker's a guy who, like, you remember what was it, Last of Us? He put out a video talking about how great the third episode was, where it's the two gay dudes. And it's like, okay, he's obviously not homophobic. He obviously doesn't hate gay people. And yet, because he likes this other thing that happens to have, lesbians, minorities, or whatever, because he says it's badly written, it's poor quality, whatever, people are so caught up in the idea of like, well, it represents these people and everything that, like, if you critique it at all, now you're a bad person, which is clearly not the case. So I feel like people are being disingenuous, but also some of them are probably so caught up in their own political views that they can't help it. I don't know. It's only getting worse.
And
forgive me, isn't he fairly good friends with a gay YouTuber that is also really hating on the Acolyte? For the life of me, I'm forgetting his name.
Friends with kid.
Hang on.
Not yet. Don't worry. I'll Drinker. Call me up. I'll be friends with you, buddy. Next time you're in Orlando for Comic-Con, I'll take you to the best spots, buddy. Come on, we'll hang out. We'll get a beer together. I'll take you to some of the local pubs. I think we got the Lucky Monk pub still around. They brew their own beer in house. It's pretty great. But no,
the Little
Platoon.
Platoon. Isn't he good friends with them?
They hang out.
The Little Platoon.
They podcast. Yeah. Little Platoon's fantastic, by the way. He has the best takedowns of the Acolyte. I'm not going to spoil anything other than saying the school shooter joke in episode 1 of his Acolyte review is one of the funniest jokes I've seen in a long time.
They made a second
He's
way to
excellent.
make a
Yes.
joke about that. Are you kidding me?
Just go watch his episode 1. It's so funny, his joke.
I'm not watching anything. You couldn't pay me to watch me do anything with Acolyte unless you're making a video on it. Then I'll watch it for that. But
telling you,
unless
Little
there's a
Platoon's
podcast
takedown of it is
episode,
pretty funny.
I'm not doing it.
He's
I don't
great.
care. I'm not. I don't want to. I don't want the information of what is in the Acolyte. Okay.
That
I don't
is
want to
fair.
know what's in the show.
You
I
don't,
don't
want
want
to
that.
you.
That's fair.
I've probably watched more of his videos taking down movies than I've watched the movies in question themselves. Like Barbie, I never watched Barbie, but I loved his video on Barbie.
Yeah,
Barbie
he's
was
got good
such an
videos.
ass,
I mean, I liked his
Yeah.
video on what was it? The new Indiana Jones movie. I can't think what it's called.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of,
The-
Dial of
I know.
Destiny. Dial of
Dial of
Destiny, as we
Destiny.
call it. So that reminds me, in 3 weeks,
James,
I know you're watching, my boy. We're going to have a special podcast where I'm inviting you on. He knows who he is. And the reason I bring him up is he's been caught up in a lot of controversy along with Little Platoon because they made fun of the newest Godzilla film and talked about how bad it is. So there's a special super secret guest who's going to make his probably first and I believe because he's shipping out only appearance on the podcast. So check back in 2 weeks
No,
for
he
that.
was on. He was on.
He's been on here before. He's
was
been
on-
on here
yeah.
before.
Briefly,
on
but
one,
we're
one
gonna have a whole.
episode.
I think we're gonna have a Godzilla extravaganza just for him, just for our little buddy here.
Yes.
A shipping out celebration.
Exactly. So, on
Yeah.
a couple more things I want to hit before we get into the main topic. The new D&D rules are coming out. So there's some leaks, there's some reviews, there's a lot of hubbub about them. The player's handbook is apparently already, getting part of it released. Not the full thing, of course. A lot of D&D tubers are getting a look at it. I'm probably going to kill my channel soon because I'm going to make a very negative video about how stupid I think some of the changes are that I think all of D&D 2 hates.
Oh boy, can't wait.
Yeah.
I don't think that'll kill your channel. I'm sure I haven't seen it. I'm waiting for it to actually come out before I pass any judgments on it. But I'm sure there will be plenty of people who don't like it.
Oh, yeah. Well, here's the thing. I'm going to be going for bat saying that we need more race and more racism in D&D. The fact that they removed it is, I think, one of the things that's going to kill the industry. And that's going to be a fun video, advocating for races and racism. The second
I'm
video
sure-
on
Hell
my
yeah.
channel, those of you who came here from Dinotopia are going to be remiss to know that you did succeed. I am making a Dinotopia follow-up video. However, I'm
Oh,
not
hell
going
yeah.
to be
Hell yeah.
I'm not going to be conciliatory. Dinotopia gets fucking awful as it goes on. You want dinosaur-human hybrids? You want digital DNA and shit from the 1800s that doesn't make any sense? Yeah, Dinotopia gets that.
No.
Oh yeah, you think the
Yeah,
new
that is
Jurassic World
exactly
films
what
are
I want.
bad? They're just
Inject it into my
Dinotopia
veins.
adaptations.
Ugh.
So be ready
Oh,
for that.
kid.
Yes.
If you do that video about racism, I absolutely have so many comments. I was so fascinated to watch the Elder Scrolls Online community get so up in arms about the Telvanni having slaves in that game.
That's not even the thing.
it was
Wait,
a whole community thing.
Do people not played Morrowind? I'm sorry, what?
Okay, so they had originally for the game, they had the Dark Elves free the Argonians in order to ally with them against the other races. But then the Telvanni are strong enough that they don't have to listen to the main government of the Dark Elves. So they kept their slaves, and so when we got that expansion, there was a large chunk of the community that were up in arms to see that sort of racism at all. And it was
Oh no, the ANCAP wizards have slaves and are awful. Oh no. What a
Right?
terrible thing. ANCAPs are bad people. I'm shook. I'm shaking right now.
Sorry, you violated the
can't.
NAP. I'm going to send a nuke to your house now.
I do have to. I feel like it bears repeating. Have they played Morrowind? Like,
Yeah. The answer is no, by the way. Of course they haven't played Morrowind.
Yeah,
And you
these
know,
people are all tourists.
It's okay if you haven't
Many
played
such
Morrowind. I'm not. it's not the end of the world. You should play Morrowind. You don't have as much of an excuse now that OpenMW is a thing, and you can like actually run the game on modern hardware. But like, if you're playing an MMO, that I don't know, man. MMOs are like such time sinks. You think they would at least like know about Morrowind at all?
That's besides the point. Like, there's so many tourists who are ruining the hobbies these days. It's so frustrating.
Yeah,
I don't. I
it's
just.
all just tourists. It's all just it is. No,
Yeah.
it's kind of
Also,
irritating.
All
they
right.
come in with their
So.
own, political.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Shoot, sorry.
Right.
My bad.
So. Last thing, don't forget to like the video and subscribe, everybody. Leave a comment in the chat. Let everybody know how much you love us. Let's get this trending in the algorithm just to scare random people who have no idea why all of a sudden it's here. It'll be very funny. And otherwise, let's start talking about subversions in media. I think we're going to talk about first just a couple pieces of media that do subversions. Those of us who've seen said media can talk about whether we think it's a good subversion or a bad subversion and why it is a good or bad subversion. Spoiler, it's all going to be about context and how you build it up and how respectful you are to the thing you're subverting. Before we fully get started, I will say this disclaimer. Everybody here probably thinks Ryan Johnson's a fucking idiot. If you think he's smart, you probably want to leave now because you're going to be very upset. He's not very smart. He's the smartest stupid person you know. He paid attention real good in like history and literature class. That way he can reference things to make you think he's smart. He is what everybody... he's a Rick and Morty fan's wet dream. He thinks and he sets things up in a way that makes you think you're smart for noticing it when it's the most obvious or disingenuous shit out there. So we're going to cover him at the end. So let's start with some other things. Who has a piece of media that does subversion that they want to start with besides me?
American Psycho. I think that we should talk
Great
about American
choice.
Psycho because it's kind of the goat. As far as like subversion goes, it is like the peak of subversion because first off, like inwardly, the narrative has this big plot twist in it. And like the narrative relies on that for it to be effective, for its whole message to be effective. But on like a meta level, the way that it goes about its subversion allows you to like one, you see the horror of how this character is behaving and just like the idea that there's just, this wolf in sheep's clothing around doing the shit that he does. But on another level, the subversion about I guess I'm just gonna spoil it because it's kind of important. Also, it's what 20 fucking years old at this point.
Yeah, I think it's okay. If you want to not spoil American Psycho, wait for 10 minutes.
Yeah, give it like 15 seconds. Like the twist that he has no idea what is real and is not, and you also have no idea what is real and what is not, is like it's beautiful. It gives you empathy with this just completely insane person, like the ability to kind of understand what's going on in their mind, and that's just like another level of the horror that is in American Psycho. I think American Psycho is peak.
There's a reason that it's so good and it survived long enough to be referenced in all these memes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it stood the test of time for sure. No, let's talk about what it is that's being subverted in that movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
So was it the idea of like American success and big money and everything, and meanwhile deep down underneath all the glamour and everything, we've got this kind of seedy, dirty, disgusting environment that these people don't expose to their outer selves or the rest of the world. But yeah, it's kind of a grim reality.
So it's partially that, and it's also another thing. There's a very big meta subversion going on where it wants you to understand that you don't need to trust what every character is telling you, that you as an audience member should probably think more critically about the thing you're consuming, because if you just go along with the film and just trust everything is true, then you miss the point of the film. You miss the point of this character is an unreliable narrator through and through. The fact that he's unreliable should tell you maybe the things going on are not completely what they seem. The interactions that especially the things he's saying to people, that's probably not what he's actually saying to them. this is important for like when you're trying to understand how the film's saying, just be a bit more aware and understanding of context clues. That's hugely important, I'd say.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a really good way of doing an unreliable narrator that pulls you in pretty well. And I think unreliable narrators, I think that might be just like a staple of Subversion in general. I don't know, like twists I would say is a staple of Subversion, and then I guess unreliable narrators is probably a staple as well.
I think it depends on if we're following like we're following one character the whole movie, right? So in that context, the unreliable narrator absolutely would probably be necessary.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't say necessary, but it can be helpful and a interesting story device, but I wouldn't say necessary.
Well, it's
Well,
definitely
for the
necessary for American Psycho. It's
Oh, for American Psycho, yes. Like in terms of that movie, or yeah, like there's definitely movies that rely upon an unreliable narrator. I meant
There's
more as
TV
like
shows
the
that rely
whole.
on there's TV shows that rely on unreliable narrators too. Sometimes you get a perspective from one character, and you don't understand what's going on or why a character would want to kill himself, but presumably we'll get the perspective of another character that'll explain why that guy wanted to kill himself a few episodes later. There's no way I would want to bring this conversation back around to the Acolyte, I swear.
Definitely not.
Oh,
And an unreliable narrator doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be a subversion. Like, I don't. It's been a very long time since I've read "I Have No Mouth, Yet I Must Scream," but the narrator is very unreliable in that story, and there's not like a huge plot twist in that book.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, I
What's
suppose
crazy about that-
that's more in that instance it's more like meta subversion. It's subverting like how the normal structure of a story works, because almost always in almost every story you're expected to just trust the narrator. The narrator is like your lens into the story and a lens of absolute truth. Whereas having an unreliable narrator in the first place is subverting that element of the story. It's subverting the
Yeah.
narrator itself as a role.
But also, that's a story that it did follow what 5 different people, and instead of having technically an unreliable narrator, it established the element of AM being able to literally like manipulate reality for these people. So it might not even be an unreliable narrator. It might just be an unreliable setting that you're in. Like, this like who's it? Ben used to be a handsome man and got turned into like a beast, and
Yeah.
everything. These people have been psychologically manipulated and tortured and had their perspectives altered and everything for, hundreds of years, right? Isn't it like 100 years or? But
I
I
don't
think
think they ever
that's another way
say.
to do it. I wouldn't call that an unreliable narrator. I would say the element, the mechanic of having AM like an entity that can bend reality, but also does it for his own reasons. I think it's a
suppose
little.
it's the reality around them that's unreliable. It's you can't really rely
Okay.
on them because they can't rely on themselves anymore.
I'd agree
On
with that.
point, I think wasn't somebody here pull up the definition of subversion? We can rip off that if you want, but I think I'm going to say that the we have to establish kind of what subversions are. So, for those of you who don't know, a subversion is a change in the status quo, or like the story that changes the context. Instead of it being like red paint on the wall, you found out that the red splashes blood. That changes it from a happy situation to a terrible one. If you see the old man smiling as he's looking at kids play, you're like, oh, he's just having fun watching it. But that same smile, looking at a scantily clad woman, you can assume lecherous intent in there. There's many famous studies about the context around that. But that's just that would be a subversion of that type of thing. And these are important and helpful for stories because they act as a little bit of a shock and a little bit of a moment that'll either say something deeper and more meaningful than if you just said it outright, or they force the audience to re-examine their own personal perspectives in a way that is, again, kind of shocking and readjusting. That's why subversions are so sought after, because those moments, those like gut punch situations where it's like, wow, I can't believe that it happened the whole time, really sell a story well and make it memorable to the audience, because it's very hard to get one over on people.
Yeah, I'd say
There's
at its
a
very,
lot of
very
definitions.
at the very
There's a
base
lot
level,
of definitions of subversions. I
I would say subversion
quickly
in a
looked it up for you.
media writing at the very basic level, it's just doing something the audience doesn't expect. Like that's at its most simple, I would say that's what it is. Obviously, there's more that goes into it than that, and there's good and bad ways to do it. But that's what I would call it at its most basic level. So
Mhm.
whether it's changing context or it's some unexpected action or something, yeah, there's
Yeah.
a million different ways to do it.
Is there a
I
specific
would
definition you
really
want to show
agree.
off to you?
No, I want to agree with Pops because a lot of the definitions that you will find when you look it up are talking about more like cultural subversions of
Yeah, the political
literature that attempts to undermine the
Got it.
dominant values and traditions of a society. But I feel like that doesn't quite get into all the subversions that you would want it to. Like you can also find, if you look at Merriam-Webster defines subversion as the attempt to overthrow or overturn from the foundation, to pervert or corrupt by an undermining of morals, allegiance, or faith. But none of these dictionary definitions, I feel, really get
Yeah.
into the full breadth of what we want it to refer to, like
Yeah,
what
see, that
Pops was.
doesn't
Not in
pertain
this context.
to
Yeah.
like writing. We're talking about
Yeah.
as it pertains to like storytelling.
Yeah, exactly. I've been looking through, and everyone wants to talk about subversive literature that goes against the grain of society. The only I feel like the series of Shrek might kind of fit into that, but it has more types of subversions too.
I was
It has a lot of.
Shrek
ahead.
definitely
it-
falls into that.
Shrek is
But
a
I think the
subversion of,
prime
like, this.
example of that is actually TLJ is a bad version, but yeah, Shrek would be a good version of it.
So let's quickly establish what a bad subversion is and why it's bad, so we can establish
boy,
why
oh boy,
TLJ is a
boy.
bad subversion. And it's honestly
Here we
very
go.
basic as to what separates a good subversion from a bad subversion. It's just the understanding of the situation. It's the information. If the information cannot be logically gleaned going backwards, then it's a bad subversion. If you can't look at it and say, "Oh, I could have understood that had I known what was going on from beforehand," then that's a good subversion. All the time you see this in like especially mystery things where they pull something mystical or magical out of nowhere that changes the situation. That's kind of cheating in a way. And a lot of bad subversions are that. They all of a sudden come out of nowhere and change everything, and there's no way for you to be able to understand or to recontextualize anything worthwhile. So a lot of the
For
I
sure.
think-
subversions, in a
Well-
story, that's what it is anyway.
That's also part of why I think like the early Game of Thrones was so great versus why the later Game of Thrones was so god awful. So I think I was telling Des the other day when we were having a discussion about the different types and whether how you can tell it's done right or whatever. It's like a good subversion gives you a million times more kind of rewatch value. So if you go back in the early Game of Thrones, you can look back and say, "Oh, there's a little hint there that this big twist will happen later on." And you can follow along and be like, "Oh wow, now I understand this thing that I didn't quite see before. Now I'm noticing more and everything." With the later seasons, and what I'm talking about with the well done stuff is obviously like Ned's death, the Red Wedding, those big events. You can see the little details that lead into it and play into it. But in the later things, it's more like it felt lazy, it felt rushed, it didn't really jive with the way that the characters had been characterized in the previous seasons. And I'm not going to lie, when they came out and said the last two seasons were supposed to be like 6 episodes each, I think we all knew deep down they were going to stink and we were in denial. But,
Yeah.
there you go.
I
would say
don't
something
think
though, something just to keep in mind when you like introduce something, it's different when it's recontextualizing everything, right? Like that
Mm.
type of subversion isn't bad when you introduced a new element and it changes your way of understanding different things. It's
I was
when
actually just gonna bring that up, yeah,
I
because I
see,
agree.
perfect.
Because
as long as it doesn't like break the established rules of the setting, yeah, you can
Right.
absolutely recontextualize it. Yeah.
and the prime example for that I was gonna bring up was Episode 5 of Star Wars. Darth Vader.
Yeah.
I'm your, because with that it recontextualizes a lot of the story, especially with like
Oh.
Obi-Wan and stuff. But
Yeah.
it,
Like
there's
Obi-Wan
not
said,
really
what I
any
said was
like if
true
you look
from a
back
different
at it, there's not setup really. it recontextualizes. You can like read different things into it. It recontextualizes, a lot of the last movie and some of that movie, but it doesn't really. There's not too much setup for it.
I got one for you. I got one. Probably the best recontextualization that comes to mind is probably the relationship between Snape and Harry Potter at the end of the
Oh
Harry
yes.
Potter. That might be one of the best recontextualizations that I can think of, at least.
I agree completely. That's just a killer
Yeah.
moment, and it makes the entire series go
Because
takes a villain to a hero.
our opinions on that might be a little bit.
Yeah.
It's for those who don't know, and for those who want spoilers. Basically, Snape is like looked at as kind of antagonistic towards Harry the whole series, and then
He's a
at like the
secondary
very
villain for
end, you
sure the
realize
whole time.
he's been his biggest ally all along. It's incredible. I really like the way
Snape was the Half-Blood Prince, right? Or am I?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
Let me see. Yeah, the other
another
things I got.
yeah, I was gonna say, and there's another type of subversion that has done a lot, and this is one of the things that the Last Jedi failed so hard at, is the meta subversion, where you take ideas and information that the audience has in its head and you change it in a way to try to, or you go against it in a way to try to like have an impact. And I'm going to tell you right now, the best version of, or not the best ever, but like one of the best versions is if you go watch Watchmen, the people who are supposed to be the most heroic, like Dr. Manhattan and Ozymandias, suck. They're the worst people in the setting. Then you have people like Rorschach, who is objectively the hero, who tries his best to hold everybody to the same standards. And you see how he is a flawed, terrible guy. He beats women, he kills prostitutes, he's just a miserable prick. But it turns out in the end, no, he was the only one who had a moral backbone. That is a complete subversion in a way that even the author doesn't understand.
He had an ideology that he followed so strongly that it literally killed him. Yeah.
And it's a complete subversion for him to do that. You don't expect, because all the other characters came into ideologies, and these people who have near omnipotence suck. Ozymandias is such a jerk, and the fact that when they show up to stop him, they're like, "Oh yeah, we're here to stop you." And it's like, "Well, you couldn't stop me. I already won 35 minutes ago. You're 35 minutes late. You can't go back in time that much. Just sit here and hang out with me and watch the world burn." This speech I'm giving you, I won already. That's why I can give it to you. I can do whatever I want now.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. The way that like he and also Dr. Manhattan, for different reasons, obviously, have both kind of lost their human element. Like they're both kind of operating on pure strategic logic rather than, taking into account that, an individual person's feelings, an individual character's loyalty to another. And they're
they
just saying,
completely lost their souls by the end.
I mean,
They're
they're
acting
way
with
of
pure
putting
utilitarian.
I was just gonna say
Uh,
they're going off of like basically pure utilitarian logic versus like Rorschach actually has like a principle that he's upholding and like is sticking to. And I guess I should say a principle that isn't just strict utilitarianism, which is just, whatever
It's subversive
gets
for
theoretically
superheroes.
the most
Because
people
remember, our heroes are supposed to do the right thing, the moral thing. Whereas Rorschach, who's the most, I guess, evil's not the right word, but the most contemptible of all the heroes outwardly, inwardly is the most heroic.
He does things. He does things according to his system of beliefs. Obviously, he's got that rigid ideology that he follows and the way that he does things. But the way that he does it is violent, bloody, angry, vicious. So it comes across. It comes across, a little differently than what you'd expect of a typical hero.
Yeah, he dislikes immorality, but in the end, he applies that to everyone. He does not want needless death. He does not want to lie to people. He values honesty and will essentially. I almost want to reference another character. There's the guy from the Suicide Squad who he loves peace so much he'll kill however many men. Yeah, like
honestly, that is actually
have...
kind of not a bad comparison.
Like that's a great comparison. Actually, yeah.
Some comparisons that I can think of is I'm guessing not everyone will get it, but I know like Shia and I think Shadow will. In
Mhm.
Armored Core 6,
Yeah.
the All Mind,
Mhm.
that was a major one, because it was like, oh, it's just like some assistant, like mini AI thing. No, fuck no, it wasn't. Holy shit, it wasn't.
It's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on that note,
I've got a
go
question.
ahead.
Just about another character that would you consider it like a meta subversion? The oh shoot, I'm blanking on his name. The bike rider from One Punch Man.
Moomin
You
Rider?
sort of sorry, what is that? Something
So
Rider?
he's like the
Moomin
lamest
Rider,
hero, but he's also the
Newman
best.
Rider, yeah. Newman Rider, he gets set up as, like a C-tiered hero, and we end up with an entire speech about him doing the right thing. All the bystanders are rooting for him, and that's usually the scene in a movie or something where the hero would,
Yeah.
bulk up, defeat the villain, woo,
Yeah.
but then kind of subverts that with no, he's a C-tier hero. He can't do
Yeah,
this.
he's
But he
he's
was
literally
standing up
just
for
a
his
guy,
principles
yeah.
too.
guy on a
Yeah.
bike.
Yeah,
He
he's
was
got
standing
heart,
up for his
but,
principles, and that's what we root for. But
yeah.
in the end, it subverts our meta expectation by sticking to the story, essentially.
Mhm.
If
great
willpower
subversion.
could get you power in that world, holy shit, he would be insane. But
Yeah, for
sadly,
real.
no.
Yeah, sadly, in reality, he is just some guy on a bike, and he's going to get his dick powerfully beaten in.
Yeah.
Every time. But he'll never stop, and that's kind of why he's still really enjoyable.
Sadly, his ultimate attack is him throwing his bike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which if he was
But
a
I mean,
wrestler,
sticking to
that'd be
those
a great.
principles makes somebody
Yeah.
someone that we like.
Against other humans, solid.
Yeah,
Against
throwing a bike in someone's face, not gonna be a good
gigantic
time for them.
beasts who can punch holes in concrete casually. Nah.
No, not so great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he does his best.
Mhm.
Sure.
And that's what's important.
Yeah.
That's
So
right.
He
I
sticks to
actually
his
want to talk
principles, which
about.
makes him fun.
Oh, go ahead.
No, that was all I'm saying. He sticks to his principles. That's why you root for him, even though the story sets up that no, he can't do this. You develop meta expectations, but then story expectations brings you down. It's a interesting cycle.
So
Wait, is
on
that a
the
pun?
terms of interesting ways to do subversion, this is going to blow up a lot of people's minds here. But I think one of the most interesting ways to do subversion I've seen in a while is actually in that garbage game Forspoken that came out like last year with the chick. Like, I literally did it with my
Oh, yeah?
freaking mind.
Why?
So okay,
Why
so
are we
here's
bringing
so
up
here's why.
Forspoken?
So it's okay. This is something I want to commend the game for, and I think is really cool. So you pick up a gauntlet that's basically lets you channel your magic power, and the whole time the gauntlet's telling you how to do it. It's teaching you how to channel things. It's got like a spirit guy trapped in it. And he's kind of like your Navi or your HUD who's helping you out. At the end of the game, you find out it's like literally Satan's trapped in your gauntlet, and the whole time he's been stealing your power. Like every time you cast a spell to power himself up slowly, and he's just siphoning a little bit off the top to put it in his pocket for later. And he was teaching you all these things, which was actually you unlocking the seals to let him out, so you can come back and kill everybody. And of course, you beat him at the end.
You know
But what a great subversion that the tutorial guy is actually Satan teaching you how to let him free.
Parasite.
So there's
Mhm.
actually a good game that does that exact thing that came out a year before.
Uh-huh.
It's called
Oh.
Atomic Heart.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say,
That's
Atomic
true.
Heart
That
came
is
out in
so
December.
true.
I was
Literally
going to
insane.
mention Hi-Fi Rush is also
Yep,
one.
that's another one that did that.
Yeah.
Hi-Fi came out at the same time too, didn't it?
I was gonna say
think-
you
I think
could
it
have
was a while
chosen something
earlier.
that like a lot better because like even the twist, like I feel if I remember correctly, some like people explaining the story, it seemed like they foreshadowed it way too hard near the end that he was like gonna turn on you basically.
Right,
How
but I
close
still
to
want to
Wait,
commend a bad story because it's to me
No,
Oh,
it
it's
wasn't
better to
Hi-Fi
take
Rush.
well, it's
Oh,
better
I
for me.
remember. I did not. Real quick, I did not mean Hi-Fi Rush. It was Robot Recall or Robo Recall. That's the one that
Okay.
I was thinking of.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know about Hi-Fi Rush. I don't
Oh,
know if
for
it has-
I'm sorry for geez, how are we forgetting about this? BioShock does that with like the first guy who like
Oh yeah,
teaches
and
Would you
right.
kindly,
Bioshock
yeah.
is the
Yeah,
best.
would
Oh,
Right.
kindly.
Yeah, I know, but like, here's the thing though. If I
That
bring
might
up
be, like, the best
Bioshock,
example
the
of it.
rest of that story is so well written that an average writer can never achieve that. You, as a person who's trying to
Oh,
write
sure.
your first story, it's going to take you a decade of writing before you can write something as masterful with
Mhm.
themes and ideas as something like Bioshock. But you can write Forspoken very easily as a writer, and I want to say that it's not
Yeah,
that
you
hard
could
to
chart
set
out
up.
Forspoken in a week.
Yeah. So all you amateur
Well, you-
writers, you can still tackle this. This is not one of those. There's a lot of things that writers get told, and I know especially when you look at writing classes, other people online will say, "Hey, that's like a high level authorship thing." The idea that you have a character who's in epistolary, but it's really written from first person of another character, and I want to do this thing, or I want to have it, so the character's a villain the whole time, and certain tropes that you'll get told in writing school. Hey, champ, you probably can't handle this yet. But a subversion, I guarantee you can try it. Even if you fail the attempt like Forspoken did, the fact that you tried to set it up and you went through the effort of thinking about it will already elevate your story a little bit more than if you just left it out. A poorly told story that's attempting to do something more complex is more commendable than a story that's told really well that does nothing interesting. It's okay to say, hey, I'm going to try to push the boundaries. Now, don't go into crazy La La Land. If you go way out of your depth, you can't handle it, that's fine. I'm talking like if you have a 4 out of 10 story, but you shot for something great, versus you can write a 6 out of 10 if you shot for something normal. That's the difference here. Don't go out here thinking you're going to write the next greatest work ever. But you can try these things. This is not a writing technique that's so difficult. Like romance, I would say, is even harder to write than a subversion. If it's evidence, look at all modern movies. They all lack romance in any way.
Yeah.
Well, I think romance
Okay.
can be easier when you'd write it in the context of a rom-com specifically.
But there's no tension. There's no
Simply
actual things
because-
going on in rom-coms.
People do it.
Well,
That's why
But
there's more.
comedy is hard. How? I mean, like really think about it for a moment. I love comedy. Good comedy is hard. Look at all the people trying to make comedy nowadays. It fucking sucks. It's
well, that's
really
specifically why I'm
bad.
talking about a rom-com, because part of the benefit there is if you write the rom poorly, it just adds to the com, sort of.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't
But
know
still,
if I'd say it like maybe
it depends on
ironically,
how
but not
you
on
write
like,
it poorly.
purpose.
Well, I feel like when you write
Yeah.
most genres poorly, it becomes
It
comedy.
depends
and-
on in what way you write it poorly.
Yeah, it depends on
For
what
example,
way.
The Last Jedi, not very funny.
Yeah.
Hey, it is hilarious when she hits Finn away from his goal and then sexually assaults him.
That was the funniest sexual
Okay,
assault.
that
Okay.
was pretty funny. I'm not
Jesus.
gonna lie.
Oh wait,
That
wait,
was-
no, Pag. The funniest sexual assault is Wonder Woman. Sexually
Is what-
assault.
oh, that's
somebody.
true,
Okay,
actually,
that
you're right,
one is
though.
the funniest
I'm
one.
sorry,
That
what?
one-
What?
Funny
Right,
sexual assault. I'm glad
Wait, do you not know about the
She-
Wonder Woman one?
Yeah, she summons her boyfriend's mind into a random guy on the street and then bangs him.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh right.
What?
Holy shit.
Literally.
What the
Yeah.
Yeah,
What?
she
Yeah.
summons her dead boyfriend's
also-
mind into a random dude on the street. Like,
Also,
and the thing is,
isn't
narratively,
she
Nar-
she can see him. She looks at this person and she sees him as what's the guy's name?
Steve
Chris
Trevor.
something.
yeah, her original boyfriend.
So
Yeah.
she sees
Yeah,
him.
but it's not.
Everyone
It's
else
not
in the
actually him.
world just sees a
No.
regular dude.
And
Well,
by the
no,
way,
it
this-
is an actual regular dude. It is
Yeah.
like actually a dude. It's not
The
by the
like
way,
Reddit,
this is
you
not
know,
just
Reddit
some
him
dude
as
who
like
vol-
handsome guy.
Yeah, this guy didn't volunteer. Yes, we're talking
yeah,
about
Wonder Woman
Subverting.
84.
Yeah,
Yeah.
This is not just some regular guy who volunteered. This is not some hobo. It's literally some guy out of nowhere.
Yeah.
This guy could have had a wife and kids. We don't know. All of a sudden, it's just now she's in his got her boyfriend here. DMT.
And the movie doesn't
Yeah.
even
This,
see
That
that
this
as a
happened
bad
in
thing.
this is
worse
in
than
Star
what
Wars. This
happened.
happened.
No,
No,
this is
Wonder Woman
Yeah,
84.
Wonder Woman
This
84.
is Wonder Woman.
Oh,
This-
what-
that's
what
even
info
worse.
on it?
That's even
But
worse than the book we're
specifically-
going to talk about next week.
Specifically,
Yeah,
the
it's-
movie
Oh
doesn't
my
treat that as a bad
goodness.
thing, taking over somebody's random body, because the wishes have a cost. But taking over a random guy's body is not a cost. It's not shown as a bad thing. The cost is her losing her powers, which is fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
It's very funny.
Yeah,
It's
like
v- okay,
Think Dragon
that
says,
one,
he's not even
that
credited
one,
with a
and
name.
the way it's bad, that one's very funny.
Oh, yeah, he's not even
Yeah, it's
credited
like
with a name.
handsome
He's
guy or
handsome man.
something.
Handsome man.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, get it
really-
correctly.
Handsome. Are you serious?
Say
Yes,
Yeah,
his
he's literally
name,
just
and-
a
yeah,
victim.
That is
I
incredible.
remember a big part of it too, where they talked about in EFAP was that in the credits he doesn't have a name. He's just
Oh,
got
and
some
by the
name.
way, if
Wow.
this if the gender roles were reversed, holy
No,
shit.
yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
they
yeah,
totally
yeah.
did that.
Oh god.
It's so funny.
Oh, if you remember, I think on her Twitter, somebody said, "Oh, I like how you did that." It was like a parody of when the movies would do that to women, and she was just sort of said, "Oh yeah, totally, that's what we were going for." No,
yeah,
it
no,
wasn't.
really, they just
Lying.
didn't
No.
think about it. Just did
Yeah,
not
no.
think about it for a moment.
Nope.
No,
Like,
he's
oh, this
right.
is romantic, right? No.
Yeah, it's gonna be way more romantic when I wear your skin, though. Let me tell you what.
But yes. So
Does he retain the memories at the end? I don't
we
know
don't
if he
know.
retains the
Well,
memories.
here's the thing,
No,
you don't
at
know
the
because
end
she
he
sees him.
doesn't.
Well, she sees him at the end. She smiles, and he gives her a smile that looks like recognition. So you're not sure if it's like, oh, he recognized that she's really pretty because she smiled at him way early in the film,
That's-
or is it like her and him remembering?
I was gonna
I'm pretty
say-
sure I had sex with you in my dream last night.
I was gonna say, yeah, I
that
could have
positive?
sworn that she saw that guy specifically like earlier in the movie before he gets
Yep.
taken over.
I
It's
think
like
he
a
did.
little,
She did, yeah.
which also is something that's great at the end of another very subversive movie known as Inception. The ambiguous
yeah.
ending on was incredibly well done.
Yeah.
So,
I-
than subversive.
Yeah, that's not subversive. A good
So-
subversive that's the opposite of what got us on this whole track of like, the first guy you talk to is a villain actually would be I'd say Metal Gear Solid 3 with Revolver Ocelot, where the whole time, he's the first boss you face, he's the main guy you talk to, that's facing you, and you're like, oh, dude, this guy sucks. And he becomes a villain because, you've probably played the other ones, and in 1 and
Mhm.
2, he's, a big villain. And then at the end,
He's the
not
bad
even during
guy.
the main story, in the after credits thing, it's like, yeah, he was actually working for the CIA, which does help recontextualize a lot of the story because he's kind of trying to kill you, kind of not, especially with the ending fight, the final gameplay portion where you two choose revolvers and one of you shoot
And
the
how
other,
neither
depending
of
on if
them
you
actually
kept
have
track
a
of what
bullet.
was.
I
like
Neither of them have
have
a bullet. One has a
Russian
blank.
roulette?
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
a question about another.
Well, not really.
subversion.
There's 2 revolvers. It's not exactly Russian roulette, but kind of.
In Metal Gear Solid, I want to say 5, not the Phantom Pain, the other Metal Gear Solid 5. At the end, you find out that the
what's that called?
main
Yeah.
character wasn't actually who you thought he was. Was he the doctor?
No, that's
you
Phantom
thought?
Pain. That's Phantom Pain.
Oh, that is.
You're
Oh,
thinking
okay.
of Phantom Pain. You're not. The
Yeah.
other one is the prequel game.
Oh, okay.
The
Yeah,
$20
Yeah,
I
that
demo.
one's like.
That's
I haven't
really
played any
long.
other Metal Gear.
It's more like a demo.
I haven't
So,
played any
yeah.
other Metal Gear, so I don't know how that fits into the broader story. But I
Yeah,
remember playing that
so-
game, and the subversion came out of nowhere to me, and I feel like it wasn't set up properly, so it came across as sort of a dud. Maybe it makes more sense in context of the series, but I feel
In
like
context of the series, it's going to be that way because
okay,
I mean, like, you could argue that in Metal Gear, and I don't mean Metal Gear Solid, I mean Metal Gear 1 and 2, you don't actually, it's on whatever system, it's blocky, you can't actually see what it is. But in terms of but you do see him in Metal Gear Solid 4, and you see that he doesn't have the horn and he doesn't have a metal arm, which means if you're playing Metal Gear Solid 5 and you played the game, like, that. Yes, with the boss as well, where you think that, I mean, the boss is actually going back to villains who at the beginning who you think are villains but are actually heroes. Boss is another one, and also the reverse with someone you think is good at the beginning helping you out being an enemy is Eva, where with the boss, the whole thing is she goes in to try and get the what's it called? She's trying to find a fortune. I can't remember what the fortune is called.
The Alchemist's Fortune. I think they were called the Alchemist, something like that. It was the pre-Illuminati, basically.
Philosophers.
Yeah, sorry, philosophers. That's
Something
right.
like that. But basically, it's the money. It's a lot of money, and it's used by.
$11.
it's used by the main villain Volgan to fund not even Metal Gear. There's no Metal Gear in the game, but I can't remember. But it's the moving tank in that game, and like all of the tech.
The
But
And
I
they
have a
use
bit of a question about the Subversion in 5. Do
Yeah.
you, what do you think about it? Because
Philosopher's
I don't
Legacy,
feel like
thank you.
there's any setup in the game itself. It sounds like all the setup is
Okay,
in other
so
games where
let me
in the
make
game
character
ex-
let
doesn't
me
look the same.
let me
Do
give
you
some
think that's
context to 5.
do you
Let
think
me
that's a good idea? Is my question. Do you think it's a good idea for the context for Subversion to not really be in the game?
So
It's in a different game.
it is in the game, technically.
Okay.
It's just not shown to you very well. The main places that you can see it in the game is that in all of the photos in the helicopter of the old members of your team, there's always exactly one person whose face is missing, no matter which one it is. On top of that, if you look at your reflection during a rainy night or a rainy day in your helicopter and lightning, I think lightning has to strike, but I could be wrong. Basically, in your reflection, you see the reflection of the character you made at the start of the game rather than Snake. So
Mhm.
it is shown in game. The problem is that it's not done very well. The problem goes further though, is we don't actually know if it was supposed to be shown better or not, because Metal
it's
Gear
also
Solid
half finished.
5
Yeah.
is not a finished game. It is an incomplete game. There were supposed to be 3 acts. We got 1 act, and then we got a very strange second act that was both the second and third act kind of jammed together in a weird way. So we don't know if there was supposed to be more like hints towards it, if there was supposed to be anything like that. That being said, no, it does kind of come out of nowhere. There are ways you can tell that it's coming, but they're all very, very obscure, which is okay
there's
because Metal Gear Solid is supposed to have a lot of obscure, interesting things that you can overread into, but it's so much that like 90% of people will just be utterly shocked by the reveal.
Yeah, if this is your first Metal Gear game, you'll be shocked. If you've played the other ones, it won't be too shocking because they also include the fact that Liquid doesn't have the same DNA. Um,
Yeah, it's kind of
Venom
the
Snake
biggest
is a
red
lot.
flag.
Venom Snake is a lot less quippy than like regular Snake, because like Big Boss and especially Naked Snake kind of quips quite a bit. Even Solid Snake has kind of like, I don't know if quip is the right word, but like
All
he'll
it's think is he's kind of goofy, like just how he like emotes to
yeah,
things. It's funny.
like he'll say he'll emote a lot more and say like lines, as to, like a snappy line at the end of sentences usually, or after someone's statement. And Venom Snake just doesn't. Like I think there's even like deliberate like pauses where Miller will say something and then there's just like
Please
a
say the
long pause
line,
where like
boss.
yeah
There's that scene. Please say the
yeah
line,
that
boss.
too
He
yeah
doesn't say it.
He doesn't say it.
Yeah, I mean that it's
Yeah.
it's kind of a big deal. That it's very, very iconic to the character that I kept
yeah.
you waiting.
It also, I mean, it also kind of helps Metal Gear because at the end you blow up the boss, Big Boss, and then you escape, and then the second game. Well, actually, the end of Metal Gear is also like I survived, but it's like I just blew you up with rockets and then escaped your blown up base. I don't really know how you survived. So I mean, it helps in that way, but overall, it's a bit weird because even Metal Gear 2 and Metal Gear kind of implies that that was actually Big Boss that you defeated in the first Metal Gear, which adds some weird things.
So,
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
I don't know all this talk
Oh,
about
that
Santa
is true. I'm
Clauses.
sorry. I do want to. This is true. Big Boss does believe in 1960s as like a 40-year-old dude that Santa is real, and he tells us very vehemently to what's Otacon's father's name? Is it
The
Huel?
the rapist guy.
The rapist.
Yes.
Covering rapist next week.
Wait, is he a rapist?
Oh
No,
yeah,
no,
I'm
no,
so,
he's
no,
not a
no, no. This
rapist.
is a different
not-
one. Different one. Different
not a
rapist. Not
rapist,
not
is he?
next week's rapist.
His wife is a rapist, but he's not a rapist. I don't think.
Oh no, you're right.
He's
He
a
just
he's
does
a cuck.
the
He gets
murder
cucked by
suicide.
his son, but he isn't a
Wait.
rapist.
Who gets raped?
No,
His-
according
his
to the
da-
media,
his-
she just had sex with that kid. No, I mean whatever it is.
Okay. Anyways, it's the guy. He's in Metal Gear
both of
Solid
his
5.
both of his wives are
Huey, I
rapists.
think, is his name. Something like that.
Yeah, Huey Emmerich. Yep.
Yeah.
Huey.
Wheelchair
Yeah,
man.
because his son is Hal. That's what I was thinking. I was thinking of
So,
Hal.
what were you gonna say, kid? You had some tangent that you wanted to go on.
Yeah, very subversive.
Well,
Yeah.
I was actually going to say the next thing to talk about with this, and one of the things that again will help with you as a writer trying to set up subversions and twists is write your story backwards. This is actually some advice that all the great mystery authors will tell you. Start with the conclusion. How do you want it to end? Then, knowing you're going to write it, you leave clues throughout the story. The way that you write a good subversion is the same way you write a mystery, except the mystery is the secondary aspect to the story. That's how you do subversions well. That's why if you look at some of the earlier good M. Night Shyamalan movies, they tend to either have an interesting subversion or they have an idea behind them that would, if you go back and rewatch the film, you can see it. I'm going to say probably his only really good
Oh.
film and his best film, The Sixth Sense, is like this. You can tell, now spoilers for those who haven't seen it, we've been spoiling everything here, but you can tell Bruce Willis is a ghost because nobody else interacts with him throughout the whole film. He never talks to anybody else really.
That
and
bothers me.
Huh?
That guy bothers me. Now I'll tell you, there's one interesting. I guess it's kind of just a little fun fact about the script from The Sixth Sense. It's weird because even reading the script, there's scenes in there that make you think like, oh, he can interact with the real world. Like the scene where he's having dinner with the wife her name's Anna, right?
I think so.
Anyway, so he's having the dinner and he's had that little monologue or whatever where she's eating and looking around and he's talking. He's like, "Oh, our son, he's got these cuts, these bruises." He goes, "I think it's a sign of maybe abuse or something." And in the script, here's the weird part: in the script, it says after he says abuse, it goes, "This makes Anna look away," and it's like, well, no, she can't see him. Like, are you trying to trick me with the script itself? I don't know.
believe
There's
so.
little things I feel.
Well,
I feel
scripts
like
have a lot of stuff that's just direction for the actors. Like scripts, like
Yeah.
that's. I mean,
Yeah, but very specific. It wasn't like at
So,
this. Anna
but
looks
I think
away.
that adds
Yeah.
that adds to it though. Is what
Makes her.
Well, I was gonna say, I think that's what Pag's saying
But-
is it adds to it by you telling the characters or the actors, hey, when Bruce Willis says this line, you need to look away. That plants in the audience's mind that this is related, and it plants it in your mind that it was related. When in reality, the twist is it was unrelated completely. She happens to look away at the same time, which helps sell the idea that he's not there and he is there at the same time. It really helps with compounding that, and that's one of the reasons that film works so well. It put him from a nobody straight on the map because it is so well done.
Yep.
All the little stuff going on to the point where they even digitally remove his shadow in a couple scenes, and you wouldn't notice it.
do they?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Huh.
Uh-huh.
Oh, you're
They
right.
a few times do that, or they had him stand in a spot where he wouldn't generate a shadow, or things like that. Because again, you don't want it to be like that. You don't want it to show off that he's there, but you would notice it because a lot of the times it's shot from knees up. Is how we do a lot of things. Very, very rarely do you shoot a camera angle where you're going to see a guy's shadow anyway. And when they did do those shots, they tried their best to make sure he didn't cast any shadow or set it up in a way like that, which is that's a really good storytelling perspective. Because once again, that's how you do it. That's why almost all of his current modern films are terrible. What was the one where they're stuck in the elevator? That was the one that pissed me off the most.
Devil? No, I don't
Yeah,
know.
was it Devil? So the premise is like five people,
That wasn't-
6 people stuck in the elevator.
Was that-
Say again, Pops?
I think that was Devil. Yeah.
Yeah,
Was it? Was it?
yeah, and
think
then
it
one
was,
of them, one of them is the devil. So it's like people who suck, and then a lovely old grandma, and it's like, okay, who's gonna be the devil? The probability is it's gonna be one of the terrible people. The subversive thing is it's the grandma. But what happens is the grandma dies early on. So you're like, oh, it can't be her because she's not dead. She's dead. So it's got to be one of the other people. Until it's revealed that the grandma was the devil playing dead the whole time. That's stupid. The character died. You just lied to your audience now. Like, why would you do
It's
that?
not a mystery anymore. There's
Dude,
nothing to
yeah,
be figured out there. It's just like, you suck.
Yeah, that's all
one
it
of
is.
the
It's just
things-
wiener, wiener, I'm smarter than you. God, all Ryan Johnson's films do this, and we're gonna get to that prick in a second. But this is why Shyamalan's films started getting so bad and having a bad taste in your mouth, because it's not fun. You're not playing along with the subversion. You don't understand. It doesn't give you new meaning. It doesn't give you new context. It does nothing but say, haha, fuck you, aren't I smarter than you? Well, yeah, you've got all the rules. You're the game designer here. You can literally write whatever you want. No shit, you can write something I don't expect. You can write anything down. Yeah. You make it happen. It's up to you to sell it to me, though. Yep. Make it in a way that's believable and enjoyable. And it's things like that that ruin subversions and stories. And I'm going to tell you right now, Knives Out is the worst about that.
No.
There's so many. If you take Knives Out from, if I explain to you the twists, they're all clever twists that you can set up. A better writer could easily write all of them in a more interesting way. But every single time it gets down to the brass tacks, the execution is horrible.
So here's the thing though. Is Glass Onion supposed to be like actually supposed to be stupid? The whole thing, like of a Glass Onion, is that it's dumb. Like that's the point of the Glass Onion. So, but like, do you think he actually did that intentionally, or it just kind of worked out for him?
You fell for my trap. I was being retarded on purpose.
Yeah.
If it's your intent to write a bad movie, then you succeeded, but you still wrote a bad movie.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
No, because I feel like he literally, like, obviously the character of Benoit Blanc is supposed to be world-class, world-renowned detective who is smart. It's like you say it's just dumb, and you quote that, talking about the film in a meta sort of a way. But within the universe of the film, I don't think that was the message that he was trying to send. But that's one of the things that I made a list. I tried to make a list of like good versus bad types of subversion. And one of the ones I got that a whole bunch of his stuff, especially in those movies, got categorized into as bad subversion. The category was basically lying to the audience.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you right now, here's an example, Pag. So if you want to say maybe film's supposed to be dumb, the way you would write a dumb mystery film is it's something that's kind of almost random, but you can still see how it could happen, or it's the like most obvious and the most basic thing. That's how you write it. It's just dumb story. Or the guy who supposedly had a heart attack just had a heart attack. He wasn't actually poisoned. The doctor just measured it wrong. That's how you write it was just dumb the whole time. What you don't do is you don't have a very important scene where a character is looking down at, I don't know what you call it, like not a hallway, but like down at two characters fucking, sees them cheating, and has complete view of everything around them. So they have nothing obstructing their view. And it's important that only this character can see the two people having sex. You then say later on, you're going to recontextualize that scene, that the lady who's banging somebody cheating on her husband is actually a cuck sitting in the corner masturbating to it. So it's not her cheating on him. It was him, enjoying watching it. But if you look at the shot from where the character who saw this is, the guy is like 10 feet to her left. And we saw that scene. The camera didn't even cleverly cut. There's not a bush there. There's not a fence there. There's nothing there of him just sitting in the corner. It's just they lied to you straight up with the camera angles. That's not how you tell it.
You have to actually hide the cuff there.
I got you. Hang on. Even worse, when they go back to that exact same scene, when they're like, oh, well, Duke was actually making sure that his girlfriend was doing this with Miles to secure, whatever sponsorship or partnership he wanted. And then we see a character behind him, watching him watch them in that scene initially. And then they show the same exact camera angle later on. Turns out there was another character. And it's like, how? You can't show the same exact camera angle and then be like, well, actually, there was a third party. Like, it didn't, it's annoying. Like, you're lying to us, basically being like, well, didn't you notice? And it's like, no, I didn't, because you literally didn't put them there.
Yeah.
I think there's actually something important that we can find here is that, specifically that a bad subversion will usually lie to you, where a good subversion will either leave some information out, or maybe there's hints at the beginning, but they're so subtle that you just miss them.
Yeah, and you can easily
a lot of these examples.
Well, you can fix the
Right.
entirety of the glass onion scenes by just putting a couple fences up. It might be weird if there's a bunch of random fences that everybody's hiding behind, but it would make the scene much better. And that's how you set up It's Just Dumb. Because, this character was too stupid to look around the fence, and this other character was too stupid to look behind them around the fence. That's how you set that up in a way that fulfills your It's Just Dumb quota while still having the scene set up in a way that makes sense. And you have, you could easily have a narrow on shot, which would be weird. It's like a silhouette of a doorway. That's all we see the character. And then the next time we have a scene, you open one of those doors and, oh, look, there's the other character. And that's how you can set it up in a way. If you want to write something stupid, it still takes a lot of intelligence to write it. That happens all the time. Great example is look at South Park. South Park is written way more intelligently than a lot of people give it credit for. It's mostly people shitting into each other's mouths and screaming slurs and stuff. But it's still written way more intelligently than you'd expect. Because actually stupid people cannot write jokes in a funny way. That's the problem when you have someone like Rian Johnson, who thinks he's smart, therefore he's just going to assume the things he puts out are fine automatically. And his smugness is what doubles down and makes it even worse. He's wrong about everything, and then he acts like he's actually right about everything. And it's frustrating because he's like sucking all the oxygen out of the room for people who could be much smarter. Ryan knows how to compose a shot. If somebody else wrote the script and his premise of them is, hey, I want to write a mystery film. However, the subversion is all the characters are just overthinking everything and it's actually just the most basic stupid shit ever. That's a good thing. That could be a fantastic premise for a film.
That would take skill, though, because regardless of whether you want the twist to be that there is no mystery or whatever, you still need to be able to create a setting and a world and characters where it's believable rather than having everyone basically just suddenly realize it. Like it's obviously, it takes a lot of kind of
Honestly, what you described, kid, it sounds similar to your basic D&D campaign. I would love to see this movie where they fail to open a door because they thought it was locked.
Hey, no, that's Velma. Fred fails to open a
Shut
door
up!
because...
I don't want to learn about that show either.
Okay, but no,
The
specifically,
less I
kid,
know
you
about
said
the show, the better.
you said that Rian Johnson can compose a shot, but didn't you just say how if he composed these shots better, it would fix the film?
When I say that, I'm talking from a filming perspective. He tends to use it more, not just flat angles and shots. It's not just two standing shots with a rolling camera going around them. He usually puts the action in the background. He knows how to make it look like a film. These films never look bad. That's one of the things about Rian Johnson and a lot of these other films that's so frustrating. Unlike stuff like The Acolyte, it doesn't look bad. So it fools you because it has a veneer of quality. That's what he does for a lot of his things. And it's not because he's, a hack. He knows how to set it up to look right. But the writing is the problem. If you were a better writer, you wouldn't have to have the camera guy, the guy filming it, adjust the shots to make it look like that. Him doing the shots is him, even though it's technically him filming camera work, it's also him writing at that time. That's the problem with him. Is the camera angle and what you show and don't show is part of the writing process. But if the writer and the author had written it in a way that said, hey, I need you to show these scenes, but put these things up here to make it, hidden, then it's a better written product. And Ryan wouldn't have any, I don't want to say qualms or control over that piece. That makes sense, Theo?
So Theo, basically it's like you know how you were saying, basically the example we gave was that if you shot it and you included a fence there, and for some reason the characters were looking and then hiding behind a fence and everything, that's not part of the shot. That's part of the setting that you're creating before you even get to the shot. So that's what I'm trying to say. Well, yeah, aesthetically the films are fucking gorgeous, but
many things can be said about The Last Jedi.
It's a beautiful turd, the most polished turd I've ever seen. But it's still a turd.
They took the gold spray paint and spray painted all over the dog droppings.
Yeah.
That's not true. Spray paint, it looks better than spray paint. Okay. Let's be a little
they did a whole turd diorama. They sculpted the turd and put it in the diorama.
It's so impressive, but it's it's a turd, right?
It's a turd, yeah.
Poop. That's what he said in the movie.
It is a diorama made of diarrhea. So
yeah.
That's just South Park. I can't wait for that to happen.
I just want to make clear, I enjoyed Star Wars when I was young. I never really like got into it. My favorite Star Wars media were the Lego video games. But
When were you young?
The Last
Last-
Jedi, The Last Jedi specifically anchored me on so many like storytelling levels that weren't even related to previous Star Wars, and that's where most of my hate for it comes from, just from itself. Okay, the thing that always stood out the most to me was so you do all that effort to free the animals, but leave the child slaves that will probably
that
get
was
punished.
That was very.
Well, of course. I mean, the animals are more important. Someone has to work in the Disney sweatshops, okay?
Yeah,
So,
come on.
you know?
Disney says child labor is based, and I wholeheartedly
Yeah, they had to
stand with
dank those
Disney on this.
concentration camps after all.
True.
Allegedly.
Oh, they did it.
The
At the end of
officials-
Mulan, they thanked the concentration camps for helping them provide the
Yeah.
background sets and
Yeah.
the labor for the background shots.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
right,
free
the girl.
Chinese labor people.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Mulan
Yeah.
sucked.
it was very generous of the CCP there.
Thank you, China. We love you so much.
Oh man.
So I do want to
In fact, we love you so much, we'll edit out, we'll shrink the black people and edit out gay kisses.
Yeah, we'll hide as many
That's
black
how much
people
we love
engaged
you.
as you want, China. Give us money.
Yeah, don't worry. We got
So I do want to talk about a few other pieces of media that do subversion really well from a meta perspective. And I think that one of the best things to talk about, like a good meta subversive piece, is No Country for Old Men. Both the book and the movie. They're both really good for different reasons, even though they're mostly the same at the core. They're both masterpieces. It's really rare that you get a book adaptation that is different enough that it's not the same story, but it's still good enough that you can watch or enjoy them both. But
I
man,
didn't know that the book and the movie were that different.
They honestly, I would say honestly the book itself, I keep repeating myself. The book itself is probably the easiest McCarthy book to read and
Definitely.
follow because it definitely it is simpler. It's a little more straightforward. And honestly, the movie, a lot of the dialogue scenes are great because they are straight lifted out of the book. So wait, what do you think is that's so different between the book versus the movie? Because I always thought it was like a very faithful
Ending.
adaptation.
The ending is real different.
Uh,
Because Leowin, we gotta get into spoilers. So right now, turn the
yeah.
podcast off if you've not watched it or not read the book. I will forgive you for not giving me watch time. Just go watch the rest of my content to make up for it. Come back here after you've seen the movie and read the book, or either or at the very minimum. So now that they're gone, the book is much more against Leywin's character. He does a lot more shitty things in the book. And look what happens with the girl at the end. He picks up the 16-year-old, and we know he's not like banging her. He's just being a nice guy because he is. But she's dressed, kind of skanky. She's going with him to a hotel room. She's trying to hook up with him, get beers. That's completely cut from the movie. That she's not even like there, and I think she's kind of important because what she does in the book is, besides it being weird that he's hanging out with this young girl, it sets up in the mind of the other characters that maybe he was kind of a piece of crap because he ran out on his wife and found a hotter, younger model. That's the idea that it's set up with that character. On top of, the movie has a very explicit scene when Tommy Lee Jones goes back to the motel and Anton is like definitely there and is breathing and he's like behind the door with the gun, and then Tommy Lee Jones opens the door and he's not there. That's not in the book at all. That's explicit there because that's the movie coming down to the side of, this is all in Tommy Lee Jones' head. He made all this up. Leon was just a dude who found a bunch of drugs. He's not a hometown hero fighting against corruption. Whereas the book very much can allow you to still believe he was a hometown hero fighting corruption. It's a complete difference.
All right, a couple of things. First of all, his name is Llewellyn. It's an Irish name. Secondly, he doesn't just pick up the girl for the fuck of it. He picks up the girl because he's on the run and he's going,
he's trying to help her out.
Hundreds of food, and he needs some nobody to just be there with him, whether it's to drive the car or to keep an eye out for him or whatever. But yeah, it's interesting because all of that happens, and when the girl and him pass away, they investigate and they see them dead, and like the first thing the sheriff says is like, "Oh, his wife's not going to be happy about that." And meanwhile, if you've read the story, you know he had no interest in her. He was like very utilitarian how he used her. He's like, "I'll give you one beer," and she's like, "You won't give me another beer?" And he's like, "I told you one. Like, get away from me." Like,
I got you.
You
And to the
disgust
point
me,
where he
Phil.
buys her own hotel room, like across the hallway, so she's got like no way to come over there. He makes sure that she's got, only one copy of the key, so she goes in there. She can't leave and come harass him. He's very much I love my wife. I'm not going to sleep with you. I'm just using you to help me out, and I'm going to help you out because you want to run away from home a little bit, and I may as well keep you with me because you'll probably be picked up by a drug cartel if I don't. In his eyes, and in the author's eyes, when you're reading it, especially the book, he's very much doing a good deed. It's a little bit like weird, but it's one of those things where it's like it's not like he's being a bad person. He's trying to help her, and she can help him. Versus the movie, she's just not there. There's a girl who swaves at him at the pool, but she's like 25. I think that's supposed to be the same character, but there's never a moment in the movie where it's like, oh yeah, he was banging this chick. This is going to be real tough for your wife. Doesn't happen in the movie. Where the book that happens, and I think that's important because it really sets
Yeah.
up a lot better of a dichotomy. The movie's much more in the he's a prick, and Tommy Lee Jones imagined him being good, whereas the book is way more ambiguous because we don't have that scene
Wait,
where
so I've got a
Anton
bit of a
mystically disappears.
I've got a bit of a question. When a adaptation differs from its original source, would you see fit to classify that as like a meta subversion, or maybe a subversion that's more like the dictionary definition,
No.
or maybe?
And I will yes
Yeah.
and no.
You don't think so?
it's
It
just an
can be,
adaptation.
but I don't think it necessarily has to be. Yeah, I think it's
it's
just an
important to say
adaptation
this
thing.
instance, no. And I'll also say Lord of the Rings does basically the same thing, where it subverts and changes a couple things. Tom Bombadil is actually he's both super important to the story and not important at all. Whereas in Lord of the Rings, the novelizations, the books, the Scouring of the Shire is the point of the entire story, and that's been removed completely. Whereas in the movies, that's the Scouring of the Shire doesn't happen at all because that would have set the movie to have a completely more different tone, way more dour, way more depressing. Whereas the books wanted that because the idea with the books is, for Lord of the Rings, you take home things with you and you have to fight and defend them, but do not, think that home is not affected by the wars too. That's a big part of the Lord of the Rings novelizations, is what you bring home to them. But the movies kept, for both Lord of the Rings and for No Country for Old Men, kept most of the spirit of the work alive, and the minor changes they did were to keep that tone and that spirit and a lot of the ideals going there. Versus if you look at some of the adaptations, like I just had the brain for what's the movie where they're in the hotel with red rum. And the novelization's different. Stephen King wrote it.
Oh, The Shining.
The
King
I
Shining.
Oh,
adore
Shining.
the
The
book.
Shining is completely,
Oh my-
and I would say it's almost a subversion of the book because a lot of the base themes are different there. Jack is a good person driven like to the edge of the book, and he's like probably possessed by Satan.
Yeah.
Whereas in the movie, he's just an asshole. He clearly beats his kid and his wife all the time. And this was not the hotel in the movie brought Jack to what Jack was, whereas the hotel in the book possessed him and took him over. Completely different.
Yeah,
Like
fair
you can
enough.
see in the book, there's a moment where you kind of see Jack die in character, but and the hotel is all that's left. I adored the book, which I read that first, and then I watched the movie, and I could not finish the movie because of some of the things they changed. They were too integral to me, and I could not stand it.
I mean, famously,
Theo,
I'm pretty sure Stanley
um,
Kubrick hated the movie because of that, if I recall correctly.
Stephen
Not
King.
Kubrick.
Or, no, Stanley Kubrick. I'm sorry. Yeah, I meant the writer. That's my bad.
Yeah, although I know Stephen King did like a mini series that's
Stephen King.
terrible that I
Yeah.
haven't seen.
It's not
I
terrible
personally
as
think the
you
book-
think. It's just more in line with the book, which means it's slower. But like Stephen King can't direct for shit, so he like meticulously films all the scenes that were in the book. Which, when you're adapting it for a movie, you can kind of condense stuff a little bit. So
You have to. You don't have a choice. You must do that.
Except for he
I
did,
would-
which
you
is
don't-
why the
gotta-
miniseries dragged so much.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
gotta-
Yeah.
There's got to be a lot that goes into this, like the considerations of like changing a character, or just not including a character. Like, you remember that movie with Zac Efron about the wrestling family? In real
Yes.
life, they had like I think they had 4 or 5 brothers that like all committed suicide, and they just didn't include like 2 or 3 of them because they committed suicide in a very similar way, and it kind of just would have jumbled the story. And then let's say Jurassic Park, they changed Dr. Hammond's character because it made more sense within the context of the film, in that medium, in the audience that they were trying to reach, in the way that they were trying to make you more like endeared to a character. You know, like Jack Nicholson's character in the book, he has like a slight history where he did like break his kid's arm and he was an alcoholic. We don't see that in the film really. And it's like it doesn't totally change it, but it makes it a little more I feel like it does lend itself to making the film just better within its own medium. The book is still great. I still like the book better.
Fantastic.
Adaptation is really it's a much more difficult art than people think. It really isn't as easy to like make something still good in a different medium. And it's always impressive when they like changes are like good and add something, because you can't translate books to movies one-to-one. That's just not going to work.
Well,
Of course not.
No, not well.
Hey.
You
So we
good,
should talk about Shrek.
yeah, it's a
Yeah,
good
let's
point
talk about
Shrek.
I think we should talk about Shrek.
So Shrek is a good example of not only a subversion, multiple subversions happening within the story, but a subversion of not even the genre, like the setting itself of kind of a fantastical world where there's kings and queens and princesses and magical creatures and ogres and everything. Shrek was such a fresh take on that entire world, and it was done so well. And it was all like without having to push the idea of like, well, Shrek represents this, you know, this oppressed minority or whatever. It's like, no, he's Shrek. Like, there you go. That's all you need. You know, you don't need to get too deep or symbolic or political with things. And I think people can benefit from that if they just pay attention.
From a
Shrek
high level
represents-
perspective, I find Shrek fascinating because the first few movies subvert a lot of the like meta expectations you have coming into it of the fairy tale tropes. And then we end up with movies like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, where it subverts a lot of the subversions, the meta subversions, and it both of those end up working so well for the narrative, I believe.
Golly,
The
I do.
key that Shrek has over a lot of other things is Shrek. The point is the subversion, but it doesn't decide to make the subversion the only thing it deals with. It still tries to tell a story. It still tries to set itself up to be an enjoyable piece of media and enjoyable thing, like for itself. It's really interesting because
Yeah.
Shrek. That's why it succeeds. Versus if you look at the first DreamWorks film, I think it's Ants, that fails because it's trying to rip off Bug's Life, but they don't know what Bug's Life is.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well,
Well,
Bugs
Bugs
Life
came
and
out at
Ants
the
came
same
out at the same
time.
time. They weren't really ripping each other off.
Yeah, I was gonna
No.
say they
Ants
came out at the
specifically was a
exact-
ripoff
Nah,
of Bug's Life, though.
No, Ants and Bugs
No.
Life came out like nearly
Yes.
the same time.
Yes,
like,
they did.
a few
But
months.
Ants, yeah, I know. But Ants was you can go look this up. I can go get quotes from them right now. They took Ants. They had no interest in making it. Bug's Life got announced. They had a couple people go in there and steal a spec script from Disney, or at least get what they thought was the
Okay.
script. They took it, made that into the movie Ants.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't
For
know that
sure.
part.
Yes.
Interesting.
You know what
That's
else
what
I like?
Um,
They talked about
I-
it, and they wanted to make sure that it came up beforehand to try to steal some of the thunder to make people not like Bug's Life as much or go to their film to get enough money to finish the next most important projects, which Shrek was one of them. So
Interesting.
Ants is specifically.
I will say
important.
another thing that like Shrek does with like the meta subversion is that even though it's like, you know, meta subverting like basically all of Disney and like almost like the ethos that Disney has set up, it doesn't really like, it makes jokes and fun of it, but it doesn't like crap on it, so to speak. Like it doesn't
Yeah, it's not
it doesn't
outright.
seem vindictive against it.
It's
It
not
like it'll
vitriolic,
make
it's not full
jokes
of
at it,
hatred.
but it's not vitriolic. It doesn't hate it. It's
No,
like,
not at all.
you know, making fun of your little brother or something like that. Like you do it, but you still love them. You know what I mean? Like,
The easy example is look at what piece of media you like, and I'll just say for me, I love the third Star Wars Episode 3. All the memes are fantastic.
Space.
Every single one of them is making fun of how stupid the movie is. All of them are. But they're fantastic because they're making
What
fun
about
of the movie's
Spaceballs?
stupidity.
It's making fun of some of Star Wars, but
It is,
it
but it's doing it
clearly
from
like
love.
likes it.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But I'm
Yeah.
saying for memes,
Yeah.
though, the reason I want to focus on memes is
Right.
basically meme energy is what you want to do for you if you're trying to subvert something. Because the idea is you're making fun of it, but you're doing it from a way of I care about the thing and I want to spread the enjoyment of it. But it does have some stupidity. It tends to have some problems. Memes are a great way to point it out. Which all subversions are is you take that little bit of subversion you put into a meme and you pull it out into a big thing like Spaceballs, which you brought up, Tio. It very clearly could only be written by
Right.
people who love Star Wars. It cannot be written by people today. That's why I don't think you could write it today. People are way
Yeah.
too much in the hatred category. That's also why if you look at something like almost all modern parodies, they feel so shallow and just like vile. Like Velma's a great example because it hates the thing it's making fun of. It does not enjoy that thing exists, and it is jealous of that thing's success. That's a huge problem when you're trying to subvert something. Instead of trying to celebrate it and elevate the thing you're making fun of, it really just feels like a takedown piece, which is horrible.
Tries to rip it, dude.
Yeah, you
That
can see
is
the
not-
writers talking about how you can't make the show they want with the dog. How the talking dog would automatically make it a kid's show. Meanwhile, I kind of want to point to. I almost want to point to Mystery Incorporated in that it takes some of
Oh
the.
yeah, no, it is very adult. People die in that show. Literally.
I
Yeah.
There are
Okay,
deaths.
I mean,
you know what?
honestly,
I'm gonna push back. I'm gonna push back again. I don't like the trend of like it's so adult. People die. It's like people have died in kids shows. I don't think that's adult.
Fuck the die.
Yeah,
Like
fair.
that's not what I think of an adult.
it's
It
true.
depends
Yeah,
on
like,
how they
people
die.
like
I
it
want
as
to
well.
push back. Maybe this might not be like solely against you. This might also just be me seeing 50 thumbnails on YouTube being like, "The Clone Wars is so adult," and it's like one person dying. It's like, what we freaking do? Like come on,
There's
like let's.
explicitly someone getting shot by a gun, and there is
Okay.
basically slavery in Mystery Incorporated.
You know what's
That's
another
I don't
adult
think
show?
that's like.
No, Des.
too-
But hold on. You know what's another adult
Go ahead.
show with a talking dog? It's called
What's that?
Family Guy. It's been on the
Oh,
air
that-
for a
Oh
very long
my
time.
god!
So I don't know.
No, what I
Velma's
what I want
much
to point
more
out is
Family
the
Guy.
tone is what makes something adult. There's a lot of ways to get the tone right and wrong. I'm not a big fan of the Family Guy because the tone is almost always just pure caustic. From the okay, I should say
Yeah.
from the clips I've seen, the tone is almost always caustic.
Maybe the term that you're looking for is mature. I'd be
Like
fine
vulgar.
if people said like
Vulgar.
it has like some mature themes or like times, but I don't think
Velma's
adult is
not
the right
mature.
word.
But Velma
Well-
is not.
Oh, I'm not
all
saying
mature.
Velma's mature.
Yeah.
Don't get me
No, but
wrong.
that's what I mean. Like the whole we
Okay.
can't make the
Well,
show
no.
we want.
Okay, I don't mean Velma. I mean like when people talk about like Mystery Inc. Like when they're talking about it with that, not Velma. Yeah, no, of course, something like Velma is not like.
Well,
mature
that's why it
because,
makes a
don't get me
good
wrong.
comparison in this instance, looking at Velma versus Mystery Inc. Mystery Inc. knows how to make the tone fit to make something more mature and more adult.
Yeah.
Velma only goes for that caustic tone that brings everything down. It mocks the dog. It shows you a Scooby skeleton. Meanwhile, in Mystery Inc., you can watch somebody die underwater, and you get a few moments of the characters just going, she's going to come up, right? And then you just see a broken like headpiece come up, and that's your
Yeah,
answer.
It hits you a little
Guys,
hard.
I just want
Yeah.
to pause for 1 second, if I can. Okay, so
Gotcha.
DM said there are bare tits in kids movies. Airplane is infamous PG. Okay, that was before PG-13 exists. I think it would probably be PG-13 bare minimum if it like we have to.
Yeah.
You have to remember in 1980 there wasn't
No.
PG-13, so you're either PG or R, and there was no in between. So
Yeah.
that does skew older movies. Joe, shut up. Okay.
PG, then it went to PG, then to R.
Well, G is like pure kids, so it's like kids, and then like
Yeah.
meh, and then like there's like
PG
butt
is
rape.
like everything from
Yeah,
kids
no,
to like
18-year-olds.
Well, You all know.
Yeah, it's like G is like 5. Anything past 5 is PG, and then like there's R at 18. That's what it
Yeah.
was. There wasn't the PG-13 to section off like 5 to 13 to 13 to 18. So
Well,
I
you
do
know
It
think
is
what?
there's
fun when
that
your
important
parents
distinction, but
don't
careful.
recognize ratings, though, and then you don't want to point them out. So that's how you get your father to
That's
take
what
you and your
okay.
11-year-old brother
That
to
is
Deadpool.
how that happened. Yeah, I was gonna say that happened with Deadpool, and that happened with what was it called, like Sausage Party or whatever. Like
That's also
Oh.
what
Oh
happened
my
with
God.
GTA back in the day.
Oh,
Parents
did it
didn't look
really?
at the
Oh,
rating.
that's right.
You
It
put
did
GTA
happen.
in.
You're right.
Yep.
It did happen with
Yeah.
GTA.
Well,
You're right.
you know what PG stands for, parental guidance, right?
parental
So back
guidance. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
back then the idea was basically like, yeah, if you're a parent and you're okay with your kid watching it, just go with them to watch it. And like that was okay. But to bring it to a screeching halt, I think Dez probably fucking 10 minutes ago when I was trying to talk brought up a great point about how Shrek obviously still pays homage to the fairy tale setting and loves it, versus Velma, who shits on the setting and the beloved history and this show that's been going on since the 60s. I think the way to do a subversion in like a setting or a genre that like you already that already exists and is kind of iconic, you do have to have an appreciation and a very deep respect and kind of love for the setting or genre that you're writing in. And I feel like a lot of people today doing this, they have like a kind of disdain or disrespect for it where they try to say that it's bad and stuff. And I feel like that just makes it worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Like I
Ryan
think the
Johnson
only
made subversion a dirty word.
the minor exception is that like you can probably have like hate for like individuals, but not for the whole genre. Because I think
Yeah.
Lord Farquaad was based on like the previous guy at the guy at Disney that fired like the people at or they quit or something like that.
Oh,
yeah.
So like
Yeah,
you can have hate in that way. And
well, hang
speak it
on.
in
I think
that
it's
way,
important
but
to say.
you can't
Remember,
have hate
everybody,
for the genre.
Farquaad was designed because they said
Yeah,
we want to
yeah,
get the
yeah.
word "fuckwad" into a kids movie.
Yeah.
So you can write things cleverly still.
Yeah.
I
But
think
yeah,
it might be worth looking at specific things in Shrek's specific subversions. Now, I
Yes.
want to start with a meme subversion first. They brought D&D into Shrek by having the bard donkey actually seduce the dragon. Okay, meme one out. I think the dichotomy of Shrek and Fiona is an interesting subversion because it subverts a meta expectation sort of by just adding merely reversing the aesthetics but keeping the same theme
I
of
think Shrek is actually
I
that
think
relationship is way more subversive. First, Fiona
I
being
was
a
gonna say I feel
badass.
like
Hang on, I
I
think
was gonna
Fiona
say I
being a
think they like
badass was one
subvert
of
it
the
like
first
5
times that
times.
happened. That's a specific subversion that the princess is a badass. Not that women can't be tough, that the princess is tough. The princess didn't need saving. She stayed there
Yeah.
because she was afraid of her curse and herself. That's a complete subversion to the point where every piece of crap
true.
writer rips it off these days because they think it's mainstream. Back when that came out, that was very subversive. Another thing that's super subversive about Shrek is the main hero sucks. Shrek is a selfish, fat, ugly prick. He's literally a monster. He in the Shrek book, which is terrible by the way, I do not recommend reading it. I read it from my Ogre
Oh.
video. Shrek,
didn't
it
even
literally
know
says
there was a
Shrek
book.
is the yeah, it's a
Oh, there's a
novelization. Go watch
Oh,
my
there's a
Ogre
book.
video. It's my worst video on my channel. I'm gonna remake it. It's so bad. The
Okay.
audio is borked, not the quality. But yeah, so the Shrek novelization. Shrek, it says Shrek is such a horrible thing that everybody wishes he would die. That's how Shrek opens.
I mean, like, think about the opening of the movie. Yeah, it's him like terrorizing people. Like he's just a bad guy. Like
Yeah, it's literally a
whole
mob
thing.
came to kill him.
Well,
Yes.
Yeah,
make
Mob
him like
literally
the
came
hermit
to
in the
kill him,
woods
and
who
then he just
specifically
scares them
wants to be
away.
left alone. He specifically is a
That's what I'm
hermit
saying,
that
Gil,
wants
that's
to
a
be left
subversion.
alone, which is another.
Oh, by the way, have
Well,
you guys heard
that's what I'm
about the
trying to say.
theory?
They kind of subvert aesthetics, but they add in, but they subvert aesthetics while keeping other traditional themes, the hermit in the woods, that sort of stuff. But one that a theme that they keep that I find interesting is the Fiona. You know, there's the ogre and then there's the woman, but by taking on the aesthetic of the ogre, it allows her to become true to herself. It allows her to uh sort of come into her own. She no longer has to worry about fulfilling obligations. She can do the good that she wants to do. She can become a mother through this. It's adding in traditional themes merely by switching the aesthetic of another traditional theme, so to speak.
Something you want to say, Nebula?
I mean,
Yeah, I was wondering if you guys heard about the theory where Shrek didn't have a name until he just randomly came up.
I've heard that theory. I don't think it's true. I understand why it's popular
not
though.
heard
It is
Yeah.
pretty neat. I don't
What
think
was
it has nearly as much weight to it as people say though.
I honestly, I don't think naming a character means that much ever.
No, I mean
Like,
that
you
Shrek
can
himself
sometimes
say
gave
can.
Like,
It
like,
usually doesn't.
So the theory goes, to explain the theory Nebula is talking about,
Back to you in a sec, Theo.
yeah, is that there's a theory that Shrek didn't actually have a name. He was just the ogre, you, the monster, blah blah blah. He made up Shrek on the spot when he met Donkey.
Yeah, because no one had ever asked him his name before Donkey. And he never says his name. His name is never said anywhere in the show until that point. Or in the movie,
True.
until
Yeah.
that point.
He literally, he goes, Shrek.
Yeah.
I
As if he's unsure.
I mean,
maybe he just hadn't talked to his mom in 50
yeah,
years.
maybe he
of Shrek
hasn't
time.
said anything in a
Also
long time.
fair.
That's
Well,
fine.
no,
Yeah.
because in part 3 we have a sympathetic scene between him and Justin Timberlake's character, who's Arthur, where he goes, "Oh, my dad used to put me to bed every night, slathered in barbecue sauce with an apple in my mouth." So he had parents. He was raised. I don't know.
Yep.
I
Shrek
want
definitely had
to
family.
say something. I hate Alex Gomez for reminding me of Shrek is Love, Shrek is Life. That was something I did
Oh,
not
wow.
need to
Wow.
remember.
I did.
Some
I
psychic
love
damage
that.
from all of you.
I'll
Sense
share
punch.
with you my Zoomerism. I don't
love
actually
Shrek
know the
more than
origin of
Jimmy
that.
Neutron.
I only
That
know
is
should
the
be.
literally our generation, you idiot. How do you not
It's-
know?
No.
It's,
No,
It's a
it's
comic.
a little before your time. It's very slightly before your time, but
See, Des. See,
don't look that up.
Nightmare.
vindicated.
Don't look
Sure.
Yeah, just go look
Sure,
it up.
bud.
Yeah,
Sure, bud.
Yeah.
just find the origin of
No,
Disclaimer,
do not.
don't.
Anyways,
too.
back to
Disclaimer,
Shrek.
please
I
don't.
mean,
I'm
it's
begging.
it's very. I mean, the whole thing is very subversive, of course, because like the beginning is a typical storybook opening, reminiscence of like half the Disney movies, and then
Yeah, and it
Shrek literally uses it as toilet paper. Like
Yeah.
that, of course, is very subversive.
Hey,
The whole thing of him being like he doesn't actually want to like do something good. He just wants people to get the hell away from him.
Mhm.
Of course, him being not a good guy. The whole thing, like Kid said, of Fiona actually being like a badass and actually having great powers. Fiona herself turning into an ogre and being ugly and all that. That's a big. I don't think there's anything similar before that, or very least not
Not
anything
too
like
ugly though.
I
Not too
feel like
ugly.
not too.
Kind of hot.
the idea of like it kind of like a perceptibly kind of like a character that appears a little weaker actually being badass and having some skills. Like I feel like that had been done before, but having her be
Not for a
obviously
princess.
relatable
Well, she was
to the
a literal
protagonist.
princess is the thing.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything like that
So-
with the princess.
I mean, the
Except-
closest thing is Star Wars,
Princess
hilariously
Leia, yeah.
enough.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
Star Wars would be the closest
Padme.
thing. That's actually
But
And
it
Padme,
was
yeah.
still
Well, no, Padme-
uncommon.
not Padme did thing. Yeah, it was
No, not
very
Padme.
uncommon. Yeah.
It was very
Um,
uncommon back in those days. Shrek also does so much though with like classic fairy tales, like just giving them like cute little twists that really shows that they love those fairy tales and they're making fun of it in a good way. Like the fact that Farquaad just has the mirror that can show you the fairest in the land, and he uses it to look at princesses. That the gingerbread man is real and that you can dunk him in milk as a form of torture.
That
I think one of
Pinocchio
my favorite
gets sold
subversions
by
of Shrek is
what's
actually the
his
fact.
name?
Hang on, Death. I think one of the good things that Shrek does with fairy tales is it takes Puss and makes him an actually interesting character, because Puss in Boots
Oh,
is a
yeah.
Spanish
Oh
story,
my
and in his
goodness.
original incarnation, he's kind of just a trickster troublemaker, and instead they make him just a Zorro ripoff, which is a lot more fun, because he just, you know, if you've seen the Puss in Boots movie, how he beats the giant of Del Mar is actually how he kills the ogre in the original Puss in Boots tale, which is why they brought him in to kill Shrek and Puss in Boots, Shrek 2, because they said, okay,
Holy-
are there any stories of somebody killing an ogre? And they found that there's this talking cat that kills an ogre once, and they're like, beautiful, let's use that.
Yeah,
Literally perfect.
Yeah,
And then
the way-
everyone liked him so much he got like what, 2 movies
2.5
Yeah,
spinoffs.
that are both really solid.
he was in like what, 3 of them? Yeah.
Puss has
Oh,
been
was
in
in,
terms
in
of
3
theme,
movies.
He's in 4 of them. He's in 4 of them.
Okay,
no, he's in
4.
3 of the mainstream
'Cause he-
movies, and he's got 2.5
No.
spinoffs. There's only
Yeah,
been 4
he's
Shrek
in 3 of
movies,
the main
Des.
There's
ones.
also
But again,
also
that
a little
I
bit
was
of an
thinking of.
interesting-
I forgot he was in 3. I was forgetting 3 for some reason.
but again,
3
that
is the
shows-
worst one. That's why.
Yeah, I guess
There was-
so. Yeah.
And I think we can actually talk
They
about why
had-
3 is bad on another podcast episode. Because
3
I think today, those of you who are at home, you've probably gotten a pretty good idea of subversions now, and through the jokes and ramblings, gotten a rough idea. You've not seen the last verse? Alex, fix that right now. Are you on my server, Alex Gomez? Get in my fucking server. I will
Yeah.
stream it for you one of these days. And if you don't, I'm going to kill Tio live on the next podcast. Speaking of the next podcast,
Oh, for-
Alex,
Because that's one.
oh.
yeah.
Alex, I beg of you, do not join the server. I have to ask that. You
No.
do not.
Speaking about the next podcast, though,
It's his
next-
chance.
exactly. Next week is the book club. Make sure you've read Lord Foul's Bane. It is a super important book
don't.
for the... Huh? Or don't. No, read it.
That is an or don't.
Or don't read it. You know.
I think it's worth reading. Shadow doesn't like it because the
Hey.
main character is an insufferable twat who is kind of awful. But I think it's worth reading because it has good prose, and also the main character is an insufferable twat who's
Yeah,
awful.
I'm
And
going to
I
say
think
right
that's
now...
not read it.
We stopped talking about
can I,
Velma. Come on.
Question: Can I not read it and just lie about
Velma
it?
does not have good
No,
you
you
actually
should
probably can't.
actually. If you're going to be on the podcast, you have to read it.
Yeah, anybody who wants to be in here next week. Now, if you want to do the audiobook, it's on YouTube for free, and it's 22 hours. So get started if you don't want to
And
read it.
I just want to say, on part 2 of the audiobook online, whichever one of the people on the server or in this room left that comment, I agree.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
There-
yes.
There is, I showed it to the kid. There is a comment. Someone in this room left a horrible comment, and it's true.
Yeah, I can't believe I have to read this from my server's book club. Why am I here? I'm excited, though.
Was that you, Shadow?
It was not Shadow. Shadow
No,
found
that
it
was
sent
2
to
weeks
me. He's
ago.
like, look,
No.
somebody else is suffering, not me. So I want to say right now, this book is... So Lord Foul's Bane is one of the most important books that nobody talks about anymore. It was probably the first major fantasy series after that big Tolkienian wave. And that's why it's important to bring this up, because like a lot of other media, I think that this book really set a lot of stuff on fire, and it doesn't get credit for it, even though it was way more popular back in the day. I don't think we're going to do all 10 books unless this is like hyper demanded. So please tune in next week for that episode.
Please no.
Exactly. We'll make Shadow read all of them. After this,
Please no.
after this is done, though, please come join me and Nebula on Twitch. On Nebula's Twitch, I'm going to be continuing our stream with him of Baldur's Gate 3, assuming his internet doesn't die again. And we'll be having a
hopefully.
great time.
We can only hope.
Yes. We have some goblins to kill.
Yes,
All right.
immediately. Here is
Exactly.
that for you to spam in the chat.
Yep. There we
By
go.
the way, Nebula, you will love Lord Foulbane. You will absolutely love it. It is the setter of every isekai trope.
Actually,
Oh,
yes.
no.
Everybody
It's-
says Alice
it's
the Wonder Woman is the
kind of
first
insane.
isekai. This is legitimately. It's got everything. From what I've read, everything that you want in an isekai, everything. I do mean it all is here.
Oh no.
Explaining the book to
Yes,
other
see, Alex
people, they
understands.
pointed out isekai tropes
The
that
original
even I didn't
Isekai
realize.
harem too.
We're gonna get.
He
into it.
doesn't
You
get
gotta
a
read the book.
harem.
Oh, We're in book 1,
Yeah,
Shadow.
you have to read.
We're in book
Alright.
1. There's
Oh
10 of them.
no. God, why?
Yes, Alex, if you haven't read Thomas Covenant lately, that's what we're covering next week. Join us. But yes, with that,
yeah.
the Lords and Ladies
All
Community,
right.
thank you for joining us
Alright,
today.
well,
What did you say, Pops?
we got all the links.
Yep, all the
We
links are in
we got
chat or
everybody's links.
below. You can find the links in the
Nice.
comments below, and the links are
Yep.
posted in the chat right now. So I would like to bid all
Yep.
you would do. Thank you to my guests for joining us today. And there's a video on the way. It should be out maybe tomorrow if I get enough done, but I guarantee it'll be out Friday. You all asked for the Crackhead Dice video, and I've delivered. It's 20 minutes, so I hope you enjoy.
Oh yeah.
I'm so
I'm in.
excited.
You all have a good one. Goodbye.
Take
Good
care.
night.